In the quiet centuries that comprised the European Middle Ages, the matter of oral hygiene occupied a place of modest, persistent concern among the learned and the laity alike, though never with the urgency nor systematic attention afforded to more pressing bodily afflictions, such as fevers, humors, or afflictions of the eye. Nevertheless, the cleaning of the teeth, though rarely named as such, was a subject not wholly neglected, particularly by those of means or clerical training, and even among the peasantry. Certain practices were passed down with the consistency of seasonal cycles. To understand the place of dental care within medieval daily life, one must first situate the subject within its broader context of bodily health, which, in the medieval worldview, was inextricably bound to the prevailing medical theories of the time, most notably the doctrine of the four humors. Health was considered a fragile balance between black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood, with any disturbance in this balance leading to illness. The teeth, though not themselves the focus of humoral discourse, were seen as susceptible to imbalance by way of diet, temperament, and miasmas, those invisible vapors that were thought to emanate from rotting matter or foul air. The typical medieval person, particularly in rural manorial estates scattered across the kingdoms of Christendom, consumed a diet heavy in coarsely ground grains, fibrous vegetables, legumes, and in some cases salted or smoked meats. The bread eaten by the lower classes often included fragments of millstone grit, due to the rudimentary milling technologies in use, which resulted in gradual dental abrasion over time. It was not uncommon, therefore, for older peasants to exhibit worn molars, or even tooth loss, though this was not necessarily accompanied by the chronic pain one might associate with a modern dental disorders, owing to the relatively limited availability of refined sugars in the diet. Indeed, sugar was a rare commodity in most of Europe prior to the Crusades, and remained the preserve of apothecaries and the wealthiest households well into the later medieval period. In monasteries, where attention to bodily regimen was encouraged, though always subordinate to spiritual devotion, the rule of Saint Benedict advised moderation in all things, including eating, speaking, and grooming. Some monastic communities kept schedules of bodily maintenance, especially among the infirmarers, who saw to the health of their fellow brethren. Washing the face and hands was prescribed before meals and prayers, and in certain orders, such as the Cistercians, cleanliness was considered an outward manifestation of inward purity. While tooth cleaning was not commonly recorded in monastic rules, anecdotal references appear in monastic inventories and the writings of medical clerics. Among the better documented practices was the use of small linen cloths, known in Latin as panis dentalibus, though the term was rarely standardized. These cloths were moistened, sometimes with vinegar, and used to gently wipe the teeth and gums. Vinegar, often made from wine or cider, was thought to possess cleansing and astringent properties, and its sharp taste may have served to stimulate salivation, which was likewise believed to help rid the mouth of unwanted residue. In some cases, salt was added to the mixture, particularly in regions where coastal trade brought consistent supplies of sea salt. Salt, too, was believed to purify and preserve, and in this context, it was used not only to clean the mouth, but also to ward off supposed corrupt humors residing in the oral cavity. The use of herbal powders was another common method, especially among the more affluent. Apothecaries in urban centers, such as London, Paris, or Florence, prepared tooth powders from a variety of ingredients, including ground sage, rosemary, mint, and sometimes even crushed shells, or charcoal. The powders were stored in small ceramic pots, which could be sealed with wax or cork to preserve their efficacy. These powders would be applied using the fingers, cloth, or occasionally small wooden sticks, which were rubbed along the teeth in gentle, repetitive motions. The act was not rushed, for those who engaged in it believed in slow, methodical application to ensure thorough cleansing and stimulation of the gums. A notable source on the subject is the Taquinum Sanitatis, a medieval health handbook derived from earlier Arabic medical texts and adapted into Latin. Though primarily concerned with diet and general wellness, it contains marginal notes and illustrations that hint at personal hygiene practices, including mouthwashing. It is within such texts that scholars have traced the cultural transmission of dental practices from the Islamic world into Europe, particularly in the Iberian Peninsula, where contact with the Muslim world introduced more sophisticated approaches to health and grooming. The use of twigs, or chew sticks, is another practice that finds documentation in both archaeological and textual records. These were often derived from aromatic or fibrous trees, such as willow, hazel, or ash, and were chewed until one end became frayed, forming a natural brush. The softened fibers could then be used to clean between the teeth or to scrub the tooth surfaces gently. The choice of wood often reflected local availability, and certain varieties were favored for their pleasant taste or purported medicinal properties. In some parts of Europe, such as the southern Mediterranean, olive and laurel twigs were occasionally used for this purpose, especially among those with trade access to herbal remedies and imported spices. The morning routines of townspeople often included the chewing of such twigs, particularly among merchants, scribes, or clerics who might interact with others, and therefore had reason to maintain a degree of oral freshness. The scent of mint or anise, when added to the twig or chewed alongside it, was thought to aid in breath purification. Although the idea of fresh breath did not carry the same commercial connotations it does in modern societies, it was nonetheless a desirable trait, particularly among those who spent their days in close quarters. In addition to twigs and powders, rinsing the mouth with herbal infusions was practiced in certain regions. Infusions of thyme, chamomile, or myrrh were recommended by herbalists, such as Hildegard of Bingen, who wrote extensively on the medicinal uses of plants. These infusions, sometimes warmed, would be swirled in the mouth and spat out, and were believed to reduce inflammation of the gums, alleviate minor toothaches, and maintain general oral freshness. While modern dentistry might consider such practices largely symbolic or ineffective, they were nonetheless part of the slowly evolving framework of health maintenance during the medieval period. Tools used in dental care were few and rudimentary. Small wooden picks, often whittled from soft woods and used to dislodge food from between the teeth, were found in both urban and rural archaeological contexts. Occasionally, metal implements have been recovered, though their association with personal dental care remains speculative. Some may have served multiple purposes, including minor surgical procedures or general grooming. The architecture of hygiene in the Middle Ages extended beyond individual practice into the communal infrastructure of bathhouses and public fountains. In larger towns and cities, public bathhouses, some of which were coeducational and operated on designated days for men and women, served as centers not only for washing the body, but also for tending to matters of grooming. While not specifically intended for dental care, these spaces provided the setting in which oral maintenance could be discreetly performed. Heated water, access to clean linen, and the availability of oils and herbal mixtures all contributed to an atmosphere in which cleanliness, however limited in scope, was possible. Water access itself played a significant role in determining hygiene practices. In rural areas, water had to be drawn from wells or collected from rivers, and the labor involved often discouraged wasteful use. In contrast, urban centers with aqueducts or spring-fed cisterns afforded more consistent supply, though purity was always a concern. Oral rinsing with water was more likely in towns with reliable sources, especially those with monastic or civic oversight of cleanliness. The relationship between water purity and health was not clearly understood in microbial terms, but foul-smelling or visibly dirty water was often avoided. The climate also played a subtle role. In northern climates, cold water discouraged early morning hygiene routines, especially in winter. In contrast, the warmer regions of southern Europe facilitated more frequent washing, though this was always mediated by cultural expectations, class, and availability. In monasteries, the use of warm water for infirm monks was sometimes permitted, and such accommodations may have extended to rinsing the mouth or soothing dental discomfort. The concept of dental pain, when it arose, was treated with a combination of herbal poultices, prayers, and charms. Saint Apollonia, a Christian martyr whose teeth were famously extracted during her torture, became the patron saint of toothache sufferers. Small medallions bearing her image were worn around the neck, and prayers for relief were offered at her shrines. It was not uncommon for dental afflictions to be framed in spiritual terms, with sin, imbalance, or divine displeasure cited as possible causes. Remedies ranged from the application of henbane seeds, to the gums, to the insertion of warmed cloves between the cheek and tooth. The oral customs of the medieval world, though modest and largely undocumented in popular histories, formed a quiet rhythm in the broader tapestry of daily life. Their persistence, though often improvised and inconsistent, speaks to a long and slow awareness of the body and its care, a care shaped by environment, belief, and the unchanging passage of days, marked more by season than by hour. In examining the social dimensions of oral care across the Middle Ages, it is important to understand that the concern for dental cleanliness was not uniformly distributed among all strata of medieval society. Rather, it existed along a gradient shaped by wealth, literacy, geographical location, and access to specialized knowledge or goods. Within noble households, for instance, greater attention was sometimes given to grooming and hygiene, not necessarily out of medical necessity, but as an extension of etiquette and decorum expected among the elite. Noblemen and noblewomen, particularly those residing at court or in proximity to royal households, had increased access to apothecaries, imported ingredients, and written materials that suggested methods for bodily maintenance. Manuscripts compiled in the late medieval period, such as those derived from the Regimen Sanitatis Salernitanum, offered prescriptive advice on a wide variety of health-related topics, including the care of the teeth and gums. Though the tone of such works was more scholarly than practical, they did serve as references for literate members of the gentry and their personal physicians, or stewards. It is within these rarefied environments that more elaborate dental powders and pastes were prepared. Recipes might include ingredients such as ground coral, powdered cinnamon, dried orange peel, and myrrh, all believed to possess antiseptic or aromatic qualities. These powders were sometimes mixed with honey or wine to form pastes, which could then be applied with small spatulas or the finger. Some were used to polish the teeth, while others were formulated primarily for their scent, to perfume the breath during social interactions. These preparations were typically stored in glazed ceramic pots or metal containers, kept in the household's camera sanitatis, a room or cabinet where health-related tools and remedies were maintained. The aesthetic ideal of whiteness in teeth, while not a dominant concern as it is today, did find expression in some sources. Poets occasionally alluded to the whiteness of a lady's smile, comparing it to pearls or snow, though such descriptions were often more literary than observational. The reality was likely more varied, with discoloration from tannin-rich drinks, such as ale and wine, as well as general staining from herbs and food, contributing to a spectrum of natural tooth hues. Nonetheless, attempts to brighten the teeth were documented, sometimes through the use of abrasive powders or acidic rinses. These methods, while temporarily effective in removing surface stains, could also erode enamel and lead to increased sensitivity, though such effects were poorly understood. In urban centers such as Bruges, Bologna, and York, where trade routes converged and population density was higher, oral care took on additional dimensions. Barbers, who were often responsible for a wide array of grooming services, from haircutting and beard trimming to minor medical procedures, might occasionally be consulted for dental discomfort. Their shops, marked by the familiar red and white pole, served as centers of practical hygiene and, by extension, occasional dental intervention. It is known that some barbers possessed rudimentary tools for tooth extraction, such as forceps, fashioned from iron or bronze. However, these procedures were generally last resorts, reserved for teeth that were already loose, abscessed, or visibly decayed. Pain management in such situations relied primarily on herbal preparations and physical restraint. Mandrake root, known for its sedative properties, was occasionally administered in infusions, though its use was limited by its rarity and the dangers of overdose. More commonly, preparations of henbane, opium poppy, or alcohol were employed to dull pain. Extracted teeth were sometimes wrapped in cloth and kept as curiosities, or buried in consecrated ground if their removal was accompanied by prayers. Among the working classes, oral care was characterized more by routine maintenance than intervention. As mentioned previously, chewing sticks and rinses played a central role. But there were also localized customs tied to regional flora. In parts of Wales and Ireland, for instance, the use of ash tree bark was noted in oral traditions. Bark was sometimes dried, ground, and mixed with water or oil to produce a mildly astringent wash. In German-speaking regions, fir resin was chewed both for its flavor and its presumed disinfectant properties. Similarly, in the eastern parts of Christendom, particularly within the Byzantine Empire, the use of mastic gum, derived from the mastic tree, Pistacia lentiscus, was well established as both a breath freshener and a tool for cleaning the mouth. This practice later spread to Western Europe via trade and contact with the Eastern Mediterranean. Seasonal changes affected oral hygiene routines in subtle but noticeable ways. During winter months, when access to flowing water was limited, due to freezing, rinsing, and washing practices diminished. In contrast, the arrival of spring and the melting of snow led to renewed attention to bodily cleanliness, often accompanied by fasting and spiritual cleansing during Lent. At these times, oral care might be included in broader rituals of purification, especially among devout individuals. The use of mint, sage, or other garden herbs for rinsing became more frequent as fresh plants became available. In warmer months, the abundance of herbs facilitated more diverse preparations of dental powders and rinses, which were often dried and stored for use during the leaner seasons. The construction of living spaces in medieval Europe also played a role in shaping hygiene habits. In smaller peasant homes, which were typically built from wattle and daub, with thatched roofs and earthen floors, there was limited space for dedicated grooming. A simple bench near the hearth, or a basin set on a shelf, served as the locus of personal care. Light was provided by narrow windows or oil lamps, and the pace of grooming was slow, governed by the availability of water and time. In wealthier homes, separate chambers for washing were sometimes present, equipped with ceramic or wooden basins, and shelves for storing cloths, herbs, and tools. The presence of a servant or steward in such households meant that oral care could be assisted, particularly for children or elderly residents. Children were often introduced to oral routines by their mothers or nurses, who taught them to chew aromatic twigs, rinse with herb infusions, or wipe their mouths with cloths dipped in lightly salted water. These early habits were not always maintained into adulthood, but they formed the foundation of cultural norms regarding cleanliness. There is little direct evidence of child-specific dental care in medieval sources, yet the repetition of oral cleaning in household records and domestic manuals suggests that such instruction was not uncommon. Travelers, including pilgrims and merchants, faced unique challenges in maintaining oral hygiene. With limited access to water and herbal supplies, they often relied on portable means of cleaning. Small pouches of dried herbs, lengths of linen, and chew sticks were kept in satchels or belt pouches. Pilgrims visiting shrines such as Canterbury, Santiago de Compostela, or Rome might find lodging at hospices that offered basic washing facilities. The sharing of grooming tools among travelers, however, was discouraged, partly due to concerns over miasmas, and partly due to social norms surrounding cleanliness and personal space. Guilds and professional associations occasionally touched upon hygiene in their codes, particularly those related to food preparation. Bakers, brewers, and butchers were expected to maintain a basic level of cleanliness, which may have extended to oral care by implication. While there is little direct reference to dental hygiene in guild records, the emphasis on odor control and neat appearance in certain trades suggests that the mouth was not wholly excluded from these expectations. The religious calendar shaped hygiene habits in subtle ways. On feast days, individuals took particular care to present themselves in a state of bodily cleanliness, which included washing the face and, by extension, attention to the mouth. Before receiving the Eucharist, especially during major liturgical celebrations, it was customary to fast and to rinse the mouth in some traditions, though this varied by region and theological interpretation. In conclusion, the history of dental care in the Middle Ages is one of quiet persistence, marked by improvised tools, inherited knowledge, and regional variation. Though not formalized into a medical discipline, it occupied a place within the rhythms of daily life, neither exalted nor ignored, but maintained with the same practical diligence that governed so much of medieval existence. In its repetition, simplicity, and connection to the earth and its plants, it offers a slow and steady view into the past, a world in which care for the teeth was one more way to care for the body, the soul, and the passing of time. The evolution of dental care throughout the Middle Ages, though largely decentralized and undocumented in formal treatises, may also be traced through the material culture of the time, through artifacts uncovered in archaeological digs, through marginal notes in illuminated manuscripts, and through inventories preserved in monastic and civic archives. These quiet remnants of the past offer insight into the lived experience of hygiene, not as an abstract science, but as a daily act rooted in place, habit, and necessity. Excavations of medieval dwellings, particularly in towns such as Winchester, York, and Lubeck, have yielded a number of small personal items that, though not always conclusively identifiable as dental implements, suggest a broader understanding of grooming. These include bone and wood picks, flat spatula-like tools, and fragments of ceramic pots bearing traces of aromatic herbs or fine grit. The interpretation of such finds requires a cautious hand, for multifunctionality was a hallmark of medieval domestic life. A single stick might serve as both toothpick and ear cleaner. A piece of linen might be used to wipe hands, face, or teeth, depending on need. In areas where trade was active, such as the Mediterranean ports of Genoa and Venice, or the Hanseatic cities of the Baltic coast, access to imported goods enriched the oral hygiene practices of the local population. Through trade with the Levant, ingredients such as mastic, cloves, cinnamon, and dried citrus peel entered the European market, often through the hands of apothecaries or spice merchants. These were then incorporated into household remedies, with recipes varying by region and family tradition. The association of oral hygiene with medical learning was further reinforced by the slow translation and dissemination of Arabic medical texts into Latin during the High Middle Ages. These texts, produced in the courts and cities of the Islamic world, particularly Baghdad, Cordoba, and Cairo, contained advanced understandings of anatomy, pharmacology, and hygiene. Scholars such as Avicenna, Ibn Sina, in his Canon of Medicine, provided observations on the care of the mouth and teeth, including the preparation of powders and the use of aromatic rinses. When these works reached European centers of learning, such as the University of Salerno or the medical school at Montpellier, they began to inform the thinking of Western physicians and clerics alike. One finds, for example, instructions in Latin translations for the preparation of dentifricium, or tooth powder, composed of burned hartshorn, crushed oyster shells, and dried herbs, to be applied gently along the teeth to remove residue and freshen the breath. Though the abrasive nature of such substances would today be deemed harmful to dental enamel, their use reflected a commitment to cleanliness within the available understanding of bodily health. The process of producing these powders was often domestic, in scale, carried out in kitchens and storerooms rather than in formal laboratories. Dried herbs would be crushed using mortars and pestles of stone, ceramic, or bronze. The resulting mixture would be sifted through fine cloth to remove larger particles, and then stored in small vessels, occasionally labeled with painted or incised symbols indicating their purpose. Over time, the knowledge of which herbs produced astringent, soothing, or aromatic effects became part of the oral tradition of families, particularly among women, who were often the custodians of domestic healing knowledge. Climate and geography exerted a subtle but enduring influence on the development and application of these practices. In the temperate regions of northern Europe, where winters were long and wood fires were the primary source of warmth, the act of dental hygiene was frequently tied to the rhythm of indoor life. In these months, aromatic herbs were often dried and hung in the rafters, or stored in woven baskets, their gradual use marking the passing of weeks. The use of warm infusions for rinsing the mouth became a comforting routine, especially when the body remained indoors for extended periods. In contrast, the Mediterranean basin, with its longer growing seasons, milder winters, and abundant plant life, offered greater variety in the selection of fresh herbs. Villagers and townspeople alike had access to sage, rosemary, thyme, lavender, and bay laurel, many of which were known for their antimicrobial or aromatic properties. These herbs were gathered from gardens, monastery grounds, or the surrounding countryside, and used not only in cooking and medicine, but also in rinses and powders for the teeth. The monastery garden, in particular, was a site of cultivated knowledge. Following the traditions of hortus conclusus, or enclosed garden, monks maintained plots arranged in orderly beds, where each plant served both symbolic and practical purposes. Manuals such as the Herbarium of Apuleius, or the Physica of Hildegard of Bingen, documented the attributes of these plants, including their suitability for oral care. Peppermint, for example, was believed to cool and calm inflamed gums. Fennel was thought to reduce bad breath, and sage was regarded as a purifier. Monks and lay brothers tasked with herb collection and preparation, known as herbarii or hortulani, would gather the plants according to seasonal calendars, often linked to the feasts of saints or the cycles of the moon. These gatherings were quiet affairs, conducted in the early morning before the offices of prime or after vespers, when the air was still and the dew lay thick upon the leaves. The herbs would be bundled, dried in shadowed cloisters, and ground in stone mortars for storage in apothecary jars or small sacks of linen. Among the secular population, particularly in small towns and villages, access to such organized herb lore was more limited, but not absent. Cunning women, midwives, and wise men often served as informal custodians of local medical knowledge, including remedies for toothaches, mouth ulcers, and inflamed gums. Their preparations passed from parent to child were based on observation, trial, and imitation rather than formal study. The use of comfrey root, marshmallow leaves, and wood ash in various forms may be traced through such traditions. Their efficacy debated, yet their persistence undeniable. Written references to dental care in the vernacular languages of the time, Old English, Middle High German, Anglo-Norman French, are few but notable. In leech books and household manuals, brief mentions are made of wetting the teeth with vinegary and salt, or brushing with a cloth dipped in wine and sage. These instructions, often embedded among broader discussions of health and cleanliness, reflect the practical integration of oral care into broader domestic routines. The social function of the mouth, as a site of speech, of eating, of ritual and song, also lent quiet importance to its maintenance. In liturgical settings, especially within the choir stalls of great cathedrals, the clarity of chant and spoken prayer necessitated a certain attentiveness to the mouth. Choir boys and canons alike would rinse with herbal infusions or chew cloves prior to service, not only to clear the throat, but to sweeten the breath in close quarters. Similarly, in markets and guild halls, where negotiation and social interaction played central roles, those who spoke frequently or handled food were expected, implicitly or explicitly, to attend to their breath and appearance. Though the absence of formal dental norms precluded universal standards, there existed nonetheless a shared sense of propriety tied to the care of the mouth. Even in death, attention to the mouth persisted. In the preparation of bodies for burial, particularly among the nobility or clergy, the washing of the face and the closure of the jaw were carried out with deliberation and care. Linen cloths moistened with wine or rose water were used to cleanse the face, and the teeth, if visible, were wiped gently. This act was not merely cosmetic, but ritualistic, reflecting beliefs about purity, preparation for judgment, and the dignity of the body. Thus, across the centuries of the Middle Ages, from the windswept hills of Northumbria to the sun-drenched courtyards of Provence, the quiet and repetitive acts of rinsing, chewing, brushing, and wiping continued. They were not uniform, nor always conscious, but they formed a rhythm nonetheless, one that speaks not only of survival, but of care, of attention, and of the slow, deliberate negotiation between body and world. The intersection of oral hygiene and spiritual symbolism, while subtle, deserves quiet exploration, for in the medieval worldview, the body was not merely a vessel, but a reflection of divine order. Cleanliness, though rarely pursued for aesthetic reasons alone, carried associations with piety, discipline, and inner harmony. In this sense, the care of the mouth, through the use of water, herbs, or prayer, was not only an act of health maintenance, but at times a spiritual gesture, consciously or unconsciously made. Among religious orders, the Psalms were chanted daily, and the mouth served as the conduit through which sacred language passed. As such, some monastic commentators made note, however sparingly, of the responsibility to keep the mouth free of impurities, not only in speech, but in substance. While most monastic rules addressed fasting and abstinence more than physical cleanliness, certain preachers and ascetic writers emphasized moderation in consumption and neatness of habit, which included occasional references to rinsing or wiping the mouth before entering communal worship. In illuminated manuscripts, particularly books of hours and devotional treatises, small marginal illustrations occasionally depict figures engaged in acts of grooming, brushing hair, trimming nails, or rinsing the face. Rarely, a figure might be shown with a twig or cloth near the mouth, interpreted by some scholars as evidence of oral hygiene. While the frequency and clarity of such depictions are limited, they nevertheless affirm the presence of these practices in the imagination and daily routine of medieval Christians. Outside the cloister, the rhythms of the agricultural calendar dictated much of a rural laborer's daily behavior, and hygiene rituals, though basic, were often tied to natural intervals. Upon rising at first light, before setting out to the fields or tending livestock, many would begin the day with a brief rinse at the household basin, if water had been drawn the evening before. This simple act, splashing the face and rubbing the teeth with a dampened cloth or finger, was rarely recorded, but its continuity across generations suggests its significance. The basin itself, a modest item in most homes, might be made of wood, clay, or hammered copper, depending on the household's means. It would be placed on a table or a tripod stand near the door or hearth, and nearby would hang a length of cloth or coarse linen towel. In wealthier homes, a mirror of polished metal might also be affixed to the wall, though glass mirrors remained rare and costly through much of the period. In towns and among the mercantile classes, domestic routines were somewhat more elaborate. Traders, scribes, and minor officials, whose roles involved speaking with others, often kept dried herbs on hand to chew before social engagements. A sprig of parsley, a clove, or a slice of candied fennel might be tucked into the mouth and held for several minutes, believed not only to sweeten the breath, but also to calm the stomach and sharpen the mind. These habits, passed through apprenticeships or learned from household servants, contributed to an informal etiquette of bodily maintenance that accompanied the rise of urban civility. Apothecaries, particularly in cities with university ties, such as Bologna, Paris, or Oxford, kept small inventories of aromatic substances intended for the improvement of breath and the soothing of dental discomfort. In their ledgers, written in careful Latin or vernacular script, entries for pulvis dentarius, tooth powder, spongia odorata, scented sponge, or aqua dentifrica, tooth wash, appear intermittently. The ingredients varied but might include powdered mint, alum, burnt hartshorn, and the ashes of vine clippings. Clients could request custom preparations, especially prior to feasts or weddings, where prolonged speech and close proximity to others were expected. In such apothecary shops, Usually located along busy lanes or near church squares, the air would carry the mingled scents of dried rose petals, vinegar, camphor, beeswax, and cloves. Wooden drawers and ceramic jars lined the walls behind the counter, each marked with abbreviated labels or painted emblems. Mortars and pestles, bronze scales, and parchment recipe slips cluttered the work table. From time to time, a customer might enter with a sore tooth or swollen gum, seeking relief in the form of a poultice, tincture, or oil. The apothecary, dressed in plain woolen robes, would listen with patience, prepare the mixture with care, and offer mild advice on application, though always with the caveat that chronic ailments should be brought before a physician, or, in some cases, the priest. Folk remedies for toothaches also found their way into broader rural and urban culture, shared by neighbors and repeated with slight variation from region to region. In some areas, particularly in northern France and parts of England, it was believed that sleeping with a clove of garlic beneath the pillow would draw out the toothworm, a mythical creature once thought to be the cause of tooth decay. Elsewhere, charms and spoken prayers, often in Latin or mixed with local dialects, were whispered over aching jaws, accompanied by the tying of ribbons or cords around the wrist or neck. While modern understanding dismisses these practices as superstitions, they reflect an earnest effort to relieve pain using the limited knowledge and resources available. Certain saints became associated with the relief of tooth and mouth ailments, most notably Saint Apollonia. Her iconography often includes a pair of pincers holding a tooth, and her intercession was sought by those suffering from dental pain. Her feast day, February 9th, was marked in some communities with prayers, votive offerings, or pilgrimages. In churches dedicated to her, small reliquaries or painted panels might include depictions of teeth or jawbones, underscoring her role as patron of the afflicted. The influence of trade guilds and civic ordinances on hygiene norms also warrants quiet consideration. Though most guild charters did not formally regulate personal cleanliness, certain professions, such as butchers, innkeepers, or public speakers, faced unwritten expectations regarding bodily and oral presentation. Cleanliness became part of professional reputation, especially in occupations requiring interaction with clients, patrons, or city officials. By the late medieval period, particularly in the 15th century, an increasing interest in personal refinement can be detected in the writings of courtesy books and domestic guides. Works such as The Book of the Courtier by Castiglione, though slightly later and Italian in origin, echo earlier concerns found in northern texts regarding comportment, speech, and grooming. While references to dental care remained indirect, the growing emphasis on social grace and physical presence inevitably touched upon the maintenance of the mouth. The convergence of medical, religious, domestic, and civic attitudes toward oral hygiene thus created a tapestry of small, habitual acts, unwritten, seldom celebrated but nevertheless enduring. The swish of a herbal rinse before Mass, the quiet brushing of the teeth with a cloth at sunrise, the preparation of a mint-infused powder on a rainy evening in the apothecary's shop, all of these moments contributed to a culture of care that, while lacking in modern instrumentation or scientific rigor, was rich in continuity and attentiveness. Over time, as knowledge spread more freely through the advent of the printing press and the expansion of trade networks, these oral care traditions would evolve, give way, and eventually be replaced. But their legacy lies not in innovation, but in rhythm, in the daily, repetitive, measured motions of medieval life, where even the simple cleaning of one's teeth became a quiet act of order amidst the unpredictability of the world. As the medieval centuries unfolded, and the slow turn of generations carried with it both continuity and gradual adaptation, the oral hygiene practices of Europe remained modest, unmechanized, and deeply woven into the routines of domestic and devotional life. The concept of systematic dental health, as understood in later centuries, was absent, yet the body, including the mouth, received quiet attention, shaped by tradition, availability of materials, and the prevailing views of health that governed so much of medieval conduct. In the later Middle Ages, the household, particularly in more affluent dwellings, began to exhibit signs of increasing differentiation of space and function. Separate rooms for sleeping, eating, and washing, though not yet standard, became more common in manorial homes, urban residences, and ecclesiastical dwellings. Within these environments, simple routines of hygiene were practiced in greater privacy. The morning wash, for instance, might now include a brief wiping of the teeth with a damp linen, dipped in rose water or lightly salted wine, a custom that had begun to appear in more refined circles. The linen itself, often woven at home or purchased from local weavers, would be cut into narrow strips or squares. Reusability was paramount, and the same cloth might be rinsed, dried, and used for several days. In higher status households, fine linen or cotton cloth, sometimes imported from the Eastern Mediterranean, was favored for its softness and absorbency. These fabrics were stored in wooden chests or on wall pegs, each folded carefully to maintain cleanliness, a quiet testimony to the value placed on orderliness in daily life. Beyond individual routines, the broader social understanding of cleanliness, including oral cleanliness, was reinforced through shared practices, particularly in guilds, religious orders, and the customs of hospitality. When receiving guests, for example, it was not unusual for water basins, clean towels, and even scented herbs to be offered upon arrival. These gestures of welcome served not only practical purposes, but also symbolic ones, marking a transition from the public world into the protected space of the home or hall. The hosting of a feast, a wedding, or a festival required special attention to bodily grooming. Before such gatherings, participants might chew on cardamom, fennel seeds, or crushed mint, items commonly available in apothecary shops and spice stalls. In some towns, itinerant vendors sold packets of mixed herbs wrapped in parchment or cloth, which could be steeped into a rinse or chewed as a mouth freshener. Recipes varied, but commonly included dried sage, cinnamon bark, and cloves. These mixtures were prepared in advance, often as part of the wider preparations for festivity, alongside the laying of fresh rushes on the floor and the polishing of metalware. Though rarely documented in detail, oral hygiene was an element of bridal preparation as well. A young woman preparing for her wedding might be advised by her mother or elder to rinse with wine infused with rosemary or thyme, both for sweetness of breath and symbolic purity. The advice passed from elder to younger was often practical: to avoid overly spiced food before the ceremony, to chew parsley after a meal, or to carry a small bundle of mint in a pouch sewn into the gown. These customs, passed quietly through generations, were part of the informal education that structured life for women, particularly within the household. Among traveling populations, pilgrims, peddlers, and seasonal laborers, oral hygiene had to be adapted to movement and scarcity. A small kit might include a chew stick, a pouch of dried herbs, and a square of cloth, all tucked into a leather satchel or cloth bundle. Access to fresh water varied by region and season, and, as such, rinsing was not always possible. In times of drought or during long journeys across arid terrain, chewing aromatic bark or leaves provided a minimal form of cleansing, if only to maintain a sense of self-respect and alertness. In manuscript culture, occasional references to oral hygiene are found in medical miscellanies, collections of remedies compiled by clerics, noblewomen, or traveling healers. These manuscripts, written in Latin or vernacular tongues, offered guidance on a wide range of ailments, often blending empirical knowledge with spiritual instruction. A 14th century English manuscript, for example, advises that, "For the ache of tooth take sage and salt, and rub well the gums therewith." Another recommends a water of rosemary and mint, boiled and strained, to keep the mouth sweet and sound. These entries, often sandwiched between cures for aches and swellings, reflect a worldview in which oral health was considered alongside other minor, yet chronic, discomforts of the body. The language used in these texts was measured, descriptive, and free from urgency. Sickness was understood as a condition to be managed, not always cured, and hygiene formed part of this long, slow management. Even the word clean did not carry the sterility or antiseptic connotations of modern usage, but rather suggested order, harmony, and a state of fittingness, of the body prepared for worship, for society, or for rest. Architecture, too, subtly reflected this order. In townhouses of the merchant class, small niches near the hearth, or within alcoves, might contain grooming tools, a basin, a small pot of powder, or a twig of dried rosemary. These spaces were unremarkable, unadorned, and wholly functional, yet their presence speaks to the quiet regularity of care. In larger monastic establishments, the lavatorium, or communal washing area, often located near the refectory, would include troughs of water, stone basins, and sometimes even perfumed towels on feast days. Monks would rinse their hands and at times mouths in preparation for communal meals or liturgical observance. The materials of hygiene, twigs, cloths, powders, herbs, were themselves embedded in broader networks of production and trade. The cultivation of rosemary, mint, and sage was not confined to monastic gardens. Many peasant households maintained small herb plots, tended with patience and passed down through generations. These gardens were often enclosed by low wattle fences, with paths lined by smooth stones or broken pottery shards. Here, amidst the clucking of hens and the hum of bees, the elements of personal care were quietly grown, harvested, and dried. As the sun passed overhead and the shadows of the thatched roof shifted on the packed earth floor, a mother might sit and strip mint leaves from their stems, laying them on a woven tray to dry. A child might chew on a sprig while watching, learning by mimicry the habits of care. When the leaves were crisp and fragrant, they would be stored in linen bags, hung from ceiling beams or tucked into baskets beneath the bed. When needed, a pinch would be crumbled into warm water, stirred with a wooden spoon, and used for rinsing or sipping. These rituals, unhurried and nearly silent, composed the texture of medieval life. They required no clocks, no instruments, no instruction beyond example. They were as much about rhythm as they were about cleanliness, and in their repetition they shaped a sense of self and body rooted in place, in habit, and in the gentle passage of time. In the final centuries of the Middle Ages, as literacy expanded, commerce intensified, and the production of books accelerated with the printing press, so too did the spread of written advice regarding bodily care. Yet even with these changes, the essential nature of oral hygiene remained simple, grounded, and domestic. It was not innovation, but preservation, not transformation, but continuation. And so, the brushing of teeth with linen, the chewing of twigs, the rinsing of the mouth with herb-infused water, and the quiet care of one's breath persisted, not as doctrine, but as daily life, a life of slow mornings, steady hands, and soft routines, echoing through the centuries with neither fanfare nor forgetfulness. The transition from the medieval period to the early modern era did not bring with it an immediate overhaul of oral hygiene practices, but rather a quiet layering of old habits with emerging knowledge and shifting social expectations. The long-standing customs, chew sticks from willow or hazel, powdered herbs prepared in kitchen corners, rinses steeped in pewter mugs, persisted well into the 16th century and beyond, even as printed manuals, broader trade, and medical reforms began to shape household behavior more explicitly. These later developments, however, did not erase the deeply embedded rhythm of earlier practices. In rural hamlets, tucked into the folds of the English countryside, in alpine villages along the Rhone, and in the cobbled back streets of Hanseatic ports, the pace of daily life remained largely unaltered. And, within this gentle persistence, the care of the teeth, though unadorned and often overlooked by formal chroniclers, retained its quiet place within the daily obligations of the body. By the late 15th century, the growth of vernacular literature meant that households across Europe, particularly those of modest means but rising literacy, might encounter small volumes containing guidance on personal grooming. These books were often modestly bound, written a direct and practical tone, and carried with them instructions on how to maintain health through natural means. Among the entries one might find under sections titled of bodily neatness or keeping of the head and mouth were simple directives. To cleanse the teeth, use the burnt shells of egg or the powder of sage dried in the sun, or wash the mouth with wine and salt and rub with soft linen, not too harsh. Such advice, while reflective of local preferences and the influence of earlier Greco-Arabic medical ideas, reinforced practices already common among many households. The appeal of these books was not innovation, but clarity, providing words to describe acts already performed, formalizing the domestic rituals long shaped by observation and repetition. In cities, meanwhile, as guilds continued to regulate trades and professions, apothecaries and barbers took on more defined roles in the realm of bodily maintenance. Barbers, still practicing a blend of grooming and minor surgery, were increasingly recognized as providers of practical services, including tooth extraction. Their shops became places where men gathered not only to trim hair or beard, but to discuss remedies, hear news, and receive basic care. A barber might, in addition to pulling a decayed tooth, offer a rinse of warm wine mixed with sage, or suggest the use of burnt salt to rub on sore gums. The implements of oral care became slightly more refined, though still humble in material. Wooden toothpicks, now sometimes shaped with deliberate care, were carved with smooth handles and fine tips, often from boxwood, horn, or bone. A few higher status individuals, particularly in courts or among wealthy merchants, owned picks tipped with silver or gold, though their use remained primarily functional rather than decorative. Small cases, known as etuis, began to appear, slender tubular containers, fashioned from leather, wood, or metal, used to carry grooming tools such as tweezers, ear scoops, and toothpicks. These were tucked into belts or purses, and served as a kind of mobile hygiene kit, modestly signaling refinement and preparedness. As for the powders and rinses, their recipes became slightly more varied with the expansion of global trade. The arrival of new spices and botanicals from Asia and the Americas introduced ingredients such as nutmeg, cinnamon bark, and even early forms of tobacco into European apothecaries. While tobacco would later be associated with both medicinal and recreational use, in its earliest introductions, it was occasionally chewed or applied in powdered form for supposed medicinal benefit. Still, the core ingredients of dental care remained rooted in the familiar: dried mint, sage, salt, and the ashes of clean wood. These substances continued to be prepared in household kitchens, often in tandem with other domestic tasks. A single fire heated the home, cooked the meal, boiled the linen, and dried the herbs. A wooden mortar used to crush mustard seeds for preserving meat might, once cleaned, also be employed in grinding rosemary or sage for a tooth powder. The rhythms of preparation were integrated into the larger seasonal cycles. Herbs were gathered in spring, dried in summer, stored in autumn, and used throughout the winter, each step informed by experience and memory. The persistence of chew sticks well into the 16th and 17th centuries also reflects their enduring utility. Though sometimes dismissed by later writers as primitive or unsophisticated, they were in fact well adapted to their time, readily available, biodegradable, and requiring no fabrication. In households without access to powders or rinses, or in travel conditions where water was scarce, a fresh twig, lightly chewed and softened, provided a passable tool for oral cleansing. The ends would fray into bristles, and their fibrous texture could remove food remnants while stimulating the gums. In regions where certain trees, such as walnut, birch, or olive, grew in abundance, specific branches were favored for their strength or taste. The sensory qualities of dental care, its smells, textures, and tastes, were not often recorded, but they formed a quiet undercurrent of the experience. The bitterness of sage, the astringency of salt, the sweetness of wine or honey used to bind powders. These flavors marked the daily encounter with one's own breath and body. In this way, oral hygiene was not an abstract obligation, but a tactile engagement with the materials of the natural world, plants and stones and water transformed by hand and intention. Among children, the instruction in these routines came by way of imitation and gentle correction. A mother might encourage her child to rinse after a meal, offering a small cup of herb tea cooled from the midday pot. A grandmother might press a sprig of dried lavender into a child's hand and explain how it could be chewed to freshen the breath before church. These small gestures, repeated across generations, formed a lineage of care unrecorded in chronicles but preserved in action. The climate, too, shaped practice. In colder regions, where water froze in wooden buckets and hearth fires smoked in stone chimneys, rinsing was limited to warmer periods or softened with heated water. In southern latitudes, the mildness of evening air allowed for more regular cleansing, and the abundance of herbs and fruit, peels, contributed to a slightly more aromatic approach. Yet even with these variations, the underlying attitude remained steady. Dental care was simple, slow, and practical, requiring few tools and no urgency. In the spiritual domain, meanwhile, the symbolism of the mouth as a site of speech and sin continued to inform subtle aspects of cleanliness. Confession, penance, and prayer were all mediated through the tongue and lips, and while the connection to physical oral hygiene was not explicit, it created a sense of awareness around the mouth. A clean mouth, both in speech and in body, was quietly understood as part of one's presentation to the divine. This understanding lingered in the liturgy, in the chants recited before receiving communion, and in the whispered prayers of those seeking healing. With the coming of early modern dentistry in later centuries, these medieval traditions would gradually be supplanted by more formalized tools, scientific understanding, and professional roles. Yet the era of cloth and twig, of rinses brewed by hearthlight and powders crushed beneath mortar stones, left behind its own quiet legacy, a testament to the endurance of simple care, born not of theory, but of habit. In the final analysis, medieval dental hygiene was not a singular practice, but a constellation of acts: rinsing, chewing, wiping, boiling, steeping, carried out with steady hands and thoughtful attention. It was an embodied knowledge, shared through repetition, shaped by season and soil, and suffused with a calm domestic order. Thus, each morning and each evening within cottages, manors, abbeys, and farmsteads, the care of the mouth unfolded not as a dramatic gesture, but as a soft murmur in the background of life, a brushing of cloth, a chew of twig, a rinse of herb-scented water, echoing gently through the centuries. As the early modern period dawned, and the flickering candlelight of medieval Europe gave way to the slow illumination of new thought, the quiet customs of personal care persisted, particularly in the lesser-noticed corners of life. The cleaning of teeth, an act so ordinary as to rarely invite remark, remained woven into the domestic fabric, unchanged in many homes and towns for generations. It was in these spaces, in the still kitchens, in the shuttered sleeping chambers, in the quiet monasteries, and beside the hearthstones of unremarkable homes, that the tradition of oral hygiene retained its most lasting and enduring form. In the cool stone cellars of convents, where silence was kept and each hour marked with devotion, herbal preparations were often dried and stored in long rows of hanging bundles. Among them, sprigs of thyme and rosemary hung beside sage and chamomile. These were not solely for cooking or for the apothecary's chest. They were used, too, in the making of rinses and infusions for the care of the mouth and gums. A Benedictine sister might rise at lauds, rinse her mouth with warmed water steeped overnight in rosemary, and press a small cloth gently to her teeth before continuing with the day's psalmody. It was not an obligation written into the rule, but a gesture of habitual moderation, cleanliness, as simplicity, as readiness for prayer. In the warmer south, along the sun-drenched walls of Spain's inland villas and the narrow lanes of Italian towns, citrus peels were dried on window ledges and used to scent the air, the breath, and the water used for rinsing. Orange peel, lemon rind, and occasionally bitter bergamot were steeped in warm wine or boiled gently in rainwater caught in glazed terracotta basins. These infusions were kept in small jugs and poured into cups made of fired clay, pewter, or gently hammered tin. In such places, especially among the upper merchant classes, this care was folded into the ritual of the day. not ostentatiously, but as one might fold a cloth after use or win the weights of a wall clock, with calm precision and without rush. In the homes of modest tradesmen, carpenters, masons, candle makers, the care of the mouth was equally deliberate, if less perfumed. A twig, split at one end, might be kept in the pocket of a work apron, moistened in a mug of water near the hearth, and gently used at the start or end of the day. Powdered salt, sometimes mixed with the fine ash from beechwood or hazel, was rubbed on the surface of the teeth with a coarse linen scrap. These were not acts of vanity, but of pragmatism, to prevent pain, to soothe the mouth, to carry on with labor, undistracted. Children, as ever, learned by watching. A child kneeling by the door in the morning, tying their shoes or brushing dust from their tunic, might see a parent rinsing their mouth, pressing a cloth to their teeth, or chewing quietly on a sliver of dry bark. These acts became internalized, not through instruction, but through repetition, through the unspoken rhythm of domestic life that pulsed beneath the more visible rituals of the day. Water remained at the heart of all such care, and its acquisition shaped its use. In towns, water was often drawn from public fountains, or delivered in barrels by water bearers, stored in ceramic jugs in kitchen corners. In rural areas, a trip to the well or stream marked the beginning of many days. The first bucket of the morning, cold, clear, sometimes tinged with iron or the smell of clay, was reserved for drinking, for cooking, and for washing. From this a small portion might be heated gently in an iron pot, into which herbs or a pinch of salt were added. Once cooled to a comfortable warmth, the water would be used to rinse the mouth, soothe sore gums, or clean the face before the labors of the field began. The tastes of these preparations varied by season and supply. In spring, the rinse might taste faintly of new mint or sweet fennel. In autumn, of thyme and cloves. Sometimes it was flavored only with a touch of cider, vinegar, tart, and sharp. Occasionally, in the depths of winter, the rinse was merely warm water, drawn close to the hearth, the steam mingling with the scent of burning wood and damp wool garments hung to dry. In winter, when illness was more frequent and the cold air more biting, the care of the mouth took on a slightly more medicinal tone. Sore gums were treated with compresses of warm wine and sage. Toothaches were met with poultices of mashed onion, or even with heated stones wrapped in cloth and placed beside the jaw. For many, the cause of dental pain was unknown, spoken of only as toothworm or the devil's bite, and treatment was approached with solemn patience rather than precision. Remedies were applied slowly, prayers muttered beneath breath, and in time, if the pain passed, it was forgotten as quietly as it had arrived. When it did not, when the ache worsened or the swelling increased, some sought the services of the local barber surgeon. A man of mixed reputation, both feared and needed, he might be found in a market stall or the back of a tavern, tools laid out in a rolled cloth, iron pincers, a small chisel, a hooked tool of uncertain origin. The extraction, when it came, was swift and unadorned. A cloth was clenched between teeth, the head held still by an assistant or friend, and the offending tooth removed with force. Afterward, the mouth was rinsed with strong wine, and the patient was sent home, likely relieved but quieted. The tools were wiped, the cloth re-rolled, and the stall packed away until the next market day. But such moments were rare. Most care did not involve pain, nor blood, nor intervention. Most care happened in stillness, in the brushing of a cloth along molars, in the careful selection of a twig from the garden hedge, in the mixing of powdered mint and ash by the glow of a rushlight at dusk. Throughout the countryside, among the hedgerows and churchyards, among tilled fields and ivy-covered mills, the care of the mouth echoed the same logic that governed the sweeping of floors, the patching of roofs, the tending of goats or bees, small acts, done daily, that shaped a life of steadiness and survival. The body, like the home, required tending, not perfection, but maintenance. And so, through century upon century, the medieval care of the teeth continued, not as a scientific endeavor or a commercial enterprise, but as part of a broader domestic order, folded into the quiet hours between waking and sleeping, between work and worship, It was not marked by progress or innovation, but by the slow and faithful repetition of gestures that gave shape to the passing of time. A cloth, a twig, a bowl of warm water, a rinse brewed with mint, a moment of care in a world shaped by rhythm, silence, and enduring habit. As time advanced gently and predictably across the later centuries of the Middle Ages and into the slow beginnings of early modernity, the rhythms of life remained largely undisturbed in the quiet corners of Europe, where most people lived, labored, and grew old. And, within this broader pattern, the daily care of the mouth remained, like the tending of chickens, or the oiling of hinges, or the sweeping of doorsteps, not a task of singular focus, but one of many small acts that together formed the structure of a well-kept life. The materials required for this daily maintenance remained humble: a twig from the garden hedge, a handful of dried sage gathered before the morning dew had lifted, a length of linen torn from an old chemise and washed until it had softened with age, a pinch of salt kept in a small wooden box near the hearth. These tools required no instruction manuals, no specialization, and no market transaction. They were present in the domestic space as naturally as firewood or bread, used not ceremonially, but as part of the cycle of existence. The knowledge of how and when to use them was not learned in books, at least not for most. It was passed by example, carried in gesture rather than word, and reinforced by the soft authority of tradition. A child would see a parent raise the water to the lips, swirl, spit into the ashes of the hearth. A sister would show her younger sibling how to chew the twig gently, not to break it too soon. A grandmother, slowly tying a pouch of crushed dried mint for a newlywed daughter, would murmur its use with the same calm tone she used when speaking of kneading dough or easing a cough. In this way, knowledge persisted without attention to novelty. The chew stick, the rinse, and the wipe endured across decades because they worked well enough, and because they required nothing from outside the home but patience and the turning of the seasons. Even in the growing towns, where stone streets echoed with the wheels of carts, and where people lived in tighter quarters, these customs adapted without losing their character. Water might be drawn from a public fountain instead of a well. Herbs might be purchased from a stall instead of grown in a garden. A basin might be shared with neighbors rather than kept in a private corner of the home. But the rinse still took place. The cloth was still folded neatly and laid beside the jug, and the smell of mint or wine or vinegar in the morning air still lingered, faint and familiar. In wealthier homes, small luxuries sometimes accompanied these acts: a cup made of pewter instead of wood, a toothpick carved from ivory rather than horn, a cloth of finer weave embroidered at the corners. These objects were signs not of better care, but of greater means, and while they may have been admired, they did not alter the essential simplicity of the task itself. To clean the teeth remained a quiet matter, carried out alone, without commentary, and rarely discussed in the company of others. Only occasionally did records speak of these things. A merchant's account book might mention the purchase of sage or cloves for the mouth. A physician's notes might refer to a client's complaint of hot breath or swelling of the lower jaw. A nun's inventory might list a pouch of lavender and a strip of fine cloth for the morning's comfort. These references were scattered, brief, and incidental, like shadows cast by the setting sun, visible only to those who pause long enough to look. The sensory world of medieval oral care remained remarkably consistent across the centuries. The scratch of linen across the teeth, the bitterness of salt on the tongue, the faint sting of vinegar when a rinse was too strong, the dull ache of a molar in winter, soothed temporarily by warmth and quiet, the taste of rosemary mixed with wine. These sensations, mild and familiar, marked the passage of time as surely as the bells of the local church or the creak of the floorboards at night. They were private experiences, rarely shared, and yet widely understood. Every person who had lived beyond infancy knew what it was to chew, to rinse, to soothe, to endure. In a world where so much was shaped by uncertainty, plague, war, poor harvests, changing tides of rule and faith, there was a comfort in these unchanging habits, carried out beneath the roof of one's own dwelling, with one's own hands. The oral care of the Middle Ages was not driven by fear or vanity or commerce. It was not taught through prescriptions or corrected by authorities. It was simply practiced, and through practice, preserved. And in its quiet way, it served its purpose. While teeth decayed, as all things do, many lasted well into old age. Though breath may not have been fresh by modern standards, it was no more a cause for concern than the smell of the fields or the hearth. And when pain came, it was met not with panic, but with patience, and sometimes prayer. At night, when the fire burned low and the shutters were drawn closed against the wind, the last rituals of the day included, for some, a final rinse, a brushing of cloth across the back teeth, a short chew on a fresh twig, set aside after supper. These acts, carried out by candlelight or the glow of embers, marked not an ending, but a preparation, for sleep, for silence, for the soft letting go of the day. And so, century after century, in stone-walled homes and timbered cottages, in monasteries and village inns, the care of the teeth continued, not loudly, not famously, but gently, like the turning of a page in a book, or the folding of a cloth after washing, or the sound of wind moving through the dry branches of the herb garden just outside the door. A rinse, a cloth, a chew, the breath, exhaled quietly, the mouth, at rest. As the centuries passed, and the rise of more structured social orders, burgeoning trade networks, and the development of cities began to cast their influence across the daily lives of Europeans, the practices surrounding personal care, particularly oral hygiene, remained in many ways steadfastly anchored in the simplicity of earlier centuries. While some external changes took place, new products became available, some customs shifted subtly in response to growing cultural exchanges, the fundamental routine of cleaning the mouth continued as it always had, marked by quiet domestic rhythms. In cities, with their growing populations and increasing complexity of urban life, there emerged a quiet awareness of cleanliness in public spaces. Bathhouses, which had long existed in ancient cultures and had survived into the medieval era, began to take on a different character, particularly as commerce flourished. By the late medieval period and into the Renaissance, these bathhouses no longer served only as communal places for bathing, but became spaces for socialization and relaxation as well. Yet, even within these bustling public spaces, the private and personal rituals remained unchanged. Amongst the more affluent clientele, the act of mouth care might take place in the quiet privacy of one's chamber or upon leaving the bath, accompanied by the cooling of the body and a soft, perfumed rinse of water or herbal infusion. Apothecaries, who had long provided herbs, oils, and powders for various ailments, gradually began to offer more specialized items for personal care, including oral health. Yet the humble and familiar tools continued to dominate: the cloth, the salt, the herbs, and, still in use in some homes, twig and brush. These innovations, though slightly more refined, did not erase the simple habits rooted deeply in the day-to-day life of a medieval person. Instead, they layered upon the existing practices, offering new choices to the wealthy, while leaving the rest of society to continue with their tried-and-true methods, passed down through generations. For the upper classes, the imported goods from the East, cinnamon, cloves, and other spices, were often used to create tooth powders and mouth rinses, many of which were thought to not only freshen breath, but to preserve teeth. These products, though more expensive and occasionally mixed with exotic ingredients, still largely adhered to the ancient wisdom that herbs and natural substances were the foundation of health. The rich and the common folk, though separated by wealth, often relied on the same essential materials for oral care, with the only distinction being the quality and refinement of the tools and products used. In the smaller towns and villages where access to exotic herbs was limited, the routines of oral hygiene remained more basic. The use of local herbs such as sage, rosemary, and thyme for tooth powders or rinses continued as they had for centuries. The chewing of twigs, whether hazel, birch, or even juniper, remained a widely accepted practice, a symbol of the persistence of rural tradition, unaffected by the passing fads of distant cities. The tools used to clean the teeth were often simple, sometimes nothing more than a piece of frayed cloth, a pinch of salt, or a few leaves. These customs, unheralded and quiet, were the backbone of daily life, firmly established in routine and unspoken understanding. In households where children were raised, the education of hygiene, including the care of the mouth, began early. Children learned, as they did with many other aspects of their domestic world, by watching their parents, their elders, and their siblings. A mother might show her young daughter how to prepare the morning rinse, using the water from the pot and a sprig of rosemary, while an older brother might pass on the technique of chewing the twig to freshen the mouth after meals. These lessons were not framed as extraordinary acts of care, but were, rather, simple parts of the fabric of growing up, a continuation of the practices carried out for centuries. In the growing cities, where the ever-present hum of commerce and industry was accompanied by the daily rituals of urban life, such customs still persisted, though they were sometimes overlooked in the hustle of daily life. Public spaces like town squares, guild halls, and marketplaces were full of motion and sound, but they also marked the quiet, discreet spaces where people would take a moment to care for themselves. Merchants, tradesmen, and travelers would pause in their journeys to visit the public fountains, sometimes even carrying with them small pouches of herbs or homemade powders to rinse with. At these moments, the rhythm of life slowed briefly, and a quiet space was carved out for the simple act of caring for the mouth. These were not events of spectacle, but of routine, tucked between the noise of the marketplace and the bustle of the workday. As trade routes expanded, so too did the availability of new ingredients for oral care. Spices and herbs, carried over land and sea from distant lands, began to appear more frequently in the apothecary's wares. Yet, the essential act remained unchanged. A small pinch of salt, a handful of crushed herbs, and the steady routine of cleansing, rinsing, and chewing. The oral health practices that had sustained countless generations still endured, now merely enriched with a wider variety of ingredients. The changes brought by these imported goods were subtle, but not revolutionary. They were mere variations on the theme of simplicity, adding flavor, fragrance, and, in some cases, a greater sense of luxury for those who could afford them. Despite these developments, the basic elements of oral hygiene in the late medieval and early modern periods retained their calm, unhurried character. The personal, private act of caring for one's teeth, whether it was the use of a twig or the brush of a cloth, the swish of a herbal rinse, or the use of a powder, remained an essential part of everyday life, often occurring unnoticed in the quiet hours of morning and night. The rituals that surrounded it were tied not only to the body, but also to the rhythms of the day, the changing of seasons, and the simple, consistent care required to sustain life. Even in times when formal written medical advice became more widely available, particularly with the rise of printed books and pamphlets during the Renaissance, the essential nature of the practice remained humble. Written instructions, such as those advising the use of tooth powders, might become available in some urban centers, and printed guides would offer more refined methods, particularly for the wealthy. But still, these new instructions could do little to change the quiet regularity of the life of those in rural villages, towns, and smaller households who continued to rely on the materials they knew best, those they could grow, gather, or barter for, unchanged, at least in spirit, by the arrival of modernity. The simplicity of medieval oral care, tied so deeply to the cycle of domestic life, to nature's rhythms, and to the steady passage of days, did not ask for attention, but it demanded its place in the world, though it was a task that seemed unremarkable, unworthy of elaborate note in most written histories. It carried a steady and quiet importance in the lives of those who practiced it. Thus, even as the years turned and new inventions began to shape the world in unexpected ways, the basic act of maintaining one's mouth through the brushing of cloth, the chewing of twigs, the rinsing with simple infusions, remained a lasting legacy of medieval life. A life lived, for the most part, in the gentle pursuit of preservation, not perfection. An unhurried, peaceful existence, wherein each day was marked by the consistent, rhythmic acts of self-care, care for the body, the mouth, the soul. As the centuries drifted into the later stages of the early modern era, and the world began to take on new shapes with the growth of trade, the rise of science, and the eventual expansion of European influence across the globe, certain aspects of life, including the care of the mouth, began to feel the influence of these shifts, though never in such a way as to disrupt the quiet routines of centuries past. The small acts of rinsing, wiping, and chewing remained anchored firmly in the domestic life of individuals, especially among those outside the most urbanized centers of power. In the bustling cities that were growing steadily, London, Paris, Florence, and later Amsterdam, the presence of newer, more exotic products became a sign of wealth and social standing. The apothecaries' shelves were increasingly stocked with imports from the East, cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, and the much-coveted sugar, which had begun to penetrate the European market. Despite this influx of foreign ingredients, the act of cleaning the teeth remained modest, steady, and unremarkable in its simplicity, even as these products were folded into the tools of oral care. Sugar, though now available in limited quantities, introduced a new layer to the relationship between oral health and diet. The presence of sugary foods, particularly in the diets of the wealthy, began to contribute to what would later be recognized as tooth decay, though this idea would not be fully understood until centuries later. Yet, during this period, the connection between the consumption of sugar and the condition of the teeth was not entirely absent from medical discourse, though it was more theoretical than practical. By the late Renaissance and early Baroque periods, there were sporadic mentions in the writings of physicians that pointed toward a new awareness of the effects of diet on the health of the mouth, though the prevailing methods of care remained rooted in the old, traditional routines. In response to the rise of more refined, sugar-heavy diets, some physicians began to recommend the use of tooth powders more vigorously. These powders, however, were still derived largely from familiar substances, herbs, chalk, salt, and sometimes a hint of finely ground coral or pearl dust. They were mixed in small quantities ground with mortar and pestle and carefully packed into small containers. These early tooth powders, which were often applied with a small piece of cloth or a rudimentary brush, were still a far cry from the sophisticated products we recognize today, but they marked the first tangible step toward the formalization of dental hygiene. Meanwhile, in the more rural parts of Europe, where the rhythms of life followed the seasons and the demands of agriculture and the older practices persisted, unchanged by the growing commercial world, the use of herbal infusions for rinsing and chewing sticks from local trees continued to dominate in these regions, whether in the alpine valleys of the Swiss mountains, the quiet plains of Poland, or the rural French countryside. The small domestic acts of care for the teeth remained consistent. Farmers, shepherds, and their families still rose early in the morning, gathered water from the well, and, with little more than a cloth and a bit of salt, maintained their oral hygiene in the same way their ancestors had done for centuries. The practice of dental care in rural villages often remained an individual affair. People rarely, if ever, spoke of their oral habits outside the home. Even in the growing towns, where merchants, tradesmen, and artisans were increasingly exposed to new ideas and products, the quiet practice of cleaning one's teeth remained personal and subdued. The social pressures of city life were more focused on appearance, fashion, and wealth than on the cleanliness of one's mouth. Yet still, the act was not absent from the daily rituals. It might have been more common to rinse one's mouth with wine at dinner, or to chew on some dried herb after eating, but the basic practices of using cloths, twigs, and simple rinses remained enduring. It is important to note that during this period, the understanding of health was still deeply intertwined with spiritual beliefs. Personal hygiene, including oral care, was often seen not just as a physical necessity, but as a moral and spiritual act. In many religious communities, cleanliness was considered an expression of devotion, taking care of the body as well as the soul. Even in the homes of everyday people, the cleaning of the mouth was occasionally tied to the observance of religious practices. Before attending Mass or receiving communion, for instance, it was common for individuals to rinse their mouths as part of the ritual preparation. The sense of purity, which was tied to both cleanliness and the sacred, extended to the mouth, as it did to the rest of the body. In monasteries, where cleanliness was part of the monastic vows, oral care was carried out with the same precision as the tending of the gardens, the preparation of food, or the copying of manuscripts. Monks, whose daily routines included regular prayers and the chanting of psalms, understood the value of good oral health not only as a matter of physical well-being, but as an aspect of spiritual discipline. The practice of using herbal rinses, often prepared from the very plants grown in the monastery gardens, reflected a continued link between nature, health, and spirituality. The herbs used to clean the teeth were often the same as those used to purify the body or to alleviate ailments. Lavender, sage, thyme, and rosemary were not just fragrant and soothing for the mouth. They also had symbolic significance, representing both healing and harmony with nature. As the early modern era continued its gradual progress, and the world moved through the Age of Enlightenment, the ideas of personal cleanliness and health began to take on new scientific forms. In the writings of physicians and naturalists, new theories about the mouth, teeth, and hygiene began to take shape. The development of early dentistry as a formal practice, however, was still centuries away. Yet, the foundation of modern oral hygiene began to take root in these centuries, as ideas about health, science, and well-being slowly began to evolve. But even as these ideas shifted, the core of medieval practices, the rinses, the cloths, the chewing sticks, the herbs, continued in their quiet endurance. The household habits of earlier centuries, though affected by time and innovation, retained their essential simplicity. And so, the slow, steady rhythm of daily life in rural cottages and urban homes, in royal courts and monastery cells, continued to be marked by the quiet care of the body through simple acts of hygiene long before the advent of commercial dental products or modern techniques. For much of Europe, this continuity, this adherence to humble practices that had been passed from parent to child, from region to region, and across generations, marked the care of the teeth not as an extraordinary pursuit, but as an everyday necessity. And as such, it was carried out with little fanfare, with no fanatical concern for perfection, but instead with a quiet, deliberate care that echoed the unchanging rhythms of medieval life. As the 18th century unfolded, sweeping changes began to take place across Europe. The Enlightenment era brought with it new understandings of science, health, and the human body. Medical knowledge expanded rapidly, and the early stages of modern dentistry began to emerge. Yet even in these times of intellectual flourishing and medical advancement, many of the quieter, simpler practices that had defined the medieval care of the mouth continued to persist. The heart of dental hygiene remained unchanged for most, rooted in the familiar and humble routines passed down through centuries. In rural areas and small villages, where the pace of life remained relatively unaffected by the rapid growth of cities and the changing tides of knowledge, oral hygiene was still practiced with a sense of familiarity and practicality. The materials that had sustained previous generations, herbs, twigs, salt, and simple cloths, continued to serve as the primary tools for maintaining the health of the teeth. The notion of the toothbrush was still foreign to many, as it would be centuries before such devices would be widely available. And while some more educated members of society began to experiment with new methods and materials, such as powders made from pumice or finely ground coral, the majority of the population still relied on time-tested practices. For many, the act of cleaning one's teeth was a solitary affair. In rural homes, it often took place before or after meals, as the first light of dawn or the last rays of evening bathed the household in a quiet glow. A piece of cloth, a pinch of salt, and the steady motion of a hand applying powder or liquid to the teeth formed part of the daily routine. It was not a task to be given thought to. It was merely another rhythm of life, integrated into the larger routines of cooking, tending to animals, and farming the land. In this world, health was not achieved through external intervention, but through the steady repetition of small, seemingly insignificant acts, each one contributing to the whole. In cities, the slow pace of change regarding oral hygiene mirrored that of the countryside. Apothecaries, while becoming more common, were still relatively rare. Those who could afford to consult an apothecary for advice on health would often find that the remedies they offered for dental care were grounded in long-standing traditions: herbal mixtures, mouth rinses made from wine or vinegar, and powders made from plants or ashes. The apothecary, however, was no longer just a purveyor of herbs and powders. By this time, the role of the apothecary was increasingly becoming more formalized, with knowledge shared among a more educated and specialized class. In wealthier households, where more disposable income allowed for greater access to both medical advice and luxury goods, the idea of oral hygiene began to change. By the end of the 17th century, the first proper toothbrushes, made from bone or wood, with bristles made from animal hair, began to appear in select markets, especially in places like London, Paris, and Venice. However, for the majority of the population, such luxuries were beyond reach. Even in cities where toothbrushes were more readily available, many people still relied on the same humble methods: twigs, salt, and herbal rinses that had served their ancestors for generations. The continued reliance on simple practices was in part due to the slow dissemination of new dental knowledge and tools. A large gap remained between the medical theories espoused by scholars and the everyday practices of ordinary people. The average person was far more likely to seek advice from family, neighbors, or local healers than from physicians or dentists whose methods were still relatively unrefined by modern standards. For the most part, people continued to rely on what they knew best: herbal remedies, natural products, and a steady hand. The 18th century also saw an increased awareness of the connection between diet and health. With the growth of colonial trade came new foods, sugars, chocolates, and spices that began to permeate European diets, particularly among the wealthy. This shift in diet, along with the increasing popularity of sugary confections and beverages like tea and coffee, introduced new challenges for dental health. However, for much of the population, the idea that sugar could damage teeth was not yet understood, and people continued to consume sweets and other foods with little thought to their impact on oral hygiene. As such, oral care remained for many a matter of personal and familial custom, rather than something that could be addressed through external medical intervention or advice. Despite the slow changes in oral care methods, certain long-standing beliefs about cleanliness persisted. Even as toothbrushes began to appear in the homes of the upper classes, they did not immediately replace the old routines. The use of cloths for wiping the teeth, the chewing of twigs to clean the mouth, and the rinsing of the mouth with herbal solutions or vinegar continued to coexist with these newer innovations. In fact, it was not until the early 19th century that the idea of using a brush regularly to clean the teeth became more widespread. Prior to that, most people relied on what was available to them, whether it was a toothbrush, a cloth, or a homemade powder. The early 19th century saw further advancements in dentistry. The first commercial toothpaste made from soap and chalk was introduced in the 1820s, and soon after, the first mass-produced toothbrushes began to appear on the market. However, these innovations were not universally embraced. Many people continued to prefer the traditional methods that had worked for generations: herbal powders, cloths, and simple rinses, well into the 19th century. For the majority of the population, the cost of these new products, combined with the long-standing belief that oral hygiene was best maintained through natural remedies, meant that the older practices endured longer than one might expect. As the Industrial Revolution took hold, new methods of mass production made the tools of dental care more widely available. But the shift in oral hygiene practices was not solely a matter of convenience or invention. It was also influenced by a broader cultural shift toward personal responsibility and individual care. As the new medical and dental knowledge spread, the idea of self-care became more firmly entrenched in everyday life. However, the old rhythms of oral hygiene, so deeply embedded in the routines of the medieval and early modern periods, were not quickly forgotten. They endured in the quiet corners of homes and villages, continuing to offer solace, simplicity, and continuity in the face of change. The practices of medieval oral hygiene may seem modest by modern standards, but they represent a quiet, enduring legacy of care and continuity. Even as new tools, materials, and scientific understandings were introduced, the foundational customs remained. The use of cloths, herbs, salt, and twigs formed a steady rhythm in everyday life, small, unremarkable acts that, over time, contributed to a broader understanding of health and well-being. As we look back on these ancient practices, we find that they were not merely the result of ignorance or simplicity, but rather the product of a culture deeply attuned to its environment and its body. The quiet, unheralded care of the teeth, carried out in the humble spaces of medieval homes and villages, speaks to a broader commitment to health, moderation, and continuity, values that transcended centuries and remained alive in the rhythms of everyday life. As the centuries moved forward, the continuity of oral hygiene practices that had once been so deeply embedded in the daily life of ordinary people began to be slowly overtaken by the rise of modernity. However, the transition was gradual, and the simple rhythms of care for the teeth did not vanish overnight. For much of the 18th and early 19th centuries, the quiet personal habits persisted, though the world around them was changing at an increasingly rapid pace. By the time the Industrial Revolution began to reshape European society, bringing with it the mechanization of labor, the mass production of goods, and a fundamental shift in the way people interacted with the world, dental care was still, for the most part, a matter of private, individual concern. Even in the bustling streets of London, Paris, or Vienna, where shops and apothecaries offered new, mass-produced products, many continued to rely on older methods. For those without the means to purchase the new products or the knowledge to adopt the latest trends, the use of simple twigs, salt, and herbal infusions continued to be their most common practice. The introduction of the modern toothbrush, which first began to gain popularity in the early 19th century, was a gradual process. Early versions of the toothbrush, made from animal bone or wood, with bristles fashioned from horsehair or hog bristles, were still relatively rare and expensive. These brushes were initially used by the wealthy, who could afford both the product and the luxury of dedicated care for their teeth. While these new tools represented significant shift from the use of twigs and cloths, the fundamental approach to oral hygiene, gentle cleansing, the use of natural substances, and the focus on consistency rather than novelty remained the same for much of the population. The early commercial toothpaste that followed, made from basic ingredients such as soap, chalk, and occasionally mint or other flavors, did not immediately replace the familiar homemade herbal powders or salt pastes. In many homes, particularly in rural areas or among lower classes, the act of preparing one's own tooth powder from dried herbs, ash, or finely ground salt continued to be a common practice. The innovation of mass-produced toothpaste and brushes in the early 19th century was, for some, simply an extension of what had already been done, nothing more than a slight refinement in the tools available. By the mid-19th century, however, a shift began to take place. With the rise of urbanization, new medical knowledge, and the spread of printed materials, the importance of oral hygiene began to be more widely discussed. The idea of preventing tooth decay and gum disease, rather than merely treating them once they occurred, started to take hold in medical circles. The invention of the first commercially available toothpaste, which included ingredients like soap, chalk, and later fluoride, marked a significant step toward the more scientific approach to oral hygiene that would eventually come to dominate the field. In cities and towns, particularly among the middle and upper classes, the adoption of these new products was swift. Toothpaste became an item of luxury, often marketed as a way to maintain not only physical health, but also social appearance. The idea of a bright smile, or fresh breath, became more prominently associated with the middle class's desire for respectability and refinement. In these circles, the use of a toothbrush and toothpaste became a matter of daily habit, no longer merely an act of personal care, but a reflection of one's social status and adherence to modern standards of hygiene. For those who could not afford these new products, however, old habits died slowly. Twigs were still chewed, salt still sprinkled on teeth, and herbs continued to be steeped in water to create soothing mouth rinses. The reliance on natural remedies, passed down through generations, remained a consistent feature of life in rural homes, among the working classes, and in parts of Europe, where access to modern products was still limited. Yet, even as this slower, quieter tradition persisted in rural areas, the growing importance of commercialized dental products began to have a more profound impact on how people viewed their oral health. The increasing availability of dental schools and the professionalization of dentistry, bolstered by advances in medical understanding of tooth decay and gum disease, began to shift the way oral hygiene was perceived. It was no longer simply a matter of household tradition, but increasingly a field of specialized knowledge addressed by trained professionals. The widespread promotion of brushing, the introduction of fluoride, and the growing influence of dental advertisements, particularly in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, further reinforced the idea that dental care was an essential aspect of overall health. The notion of clean teeth became more explicitly tied to general well-being and social status, and with this shift came an increasing interest in preventative care. Brushing was no longer merely a part of daily routine, it became, by the 20th century, an almost ritualized activity, especially in urban environments. Still, even as the modern world rapidly encroached upon the old ways, the persistence of simpler methods, tied so closely to the natural world, offered a reminder of how far oral hygiene practices had come. Twigs and herbs may have given way to synthetic brushes and pastes, but the steady, methodical routine of caring for the mouth remained rooted in something older, more elemental. The passage of time, marked by the transition from the humble twig to the mass-marketed toothbrush, was not a leap from one era to another, but a gradual evolution shaped by necessity, habit, and culture. In quieter regions of the world, and among those who chose to reject the bustle of modernity in favor of a simpler life, oral care practices remained largely unchanged into the 20th century. Even today, there are parts of the world where the use of a chewing stick or herbal paste remains the primary method of dental hygiene. The influence of the modern toothbrush may have swept across much of the globe, but for many, these traditional practices still carry with them the comfort and familiarity of a practice that has endured for centuries. This continuity, this slow, steady evolution, marks the lasting legacy of medieval oral hygiene. What began as an unremarkable, almost unnoticed part of daily life in the Middle Ages continued in various forms, adapting to the changing tides of history. The quiet, humble act of caring for one's teeth through cloth, twig, salt, and herb remained a cornerstone of personal care, even as the world shifted around it. In the end, the legacy of these practices is not defined by the tools or the substances used, but by the quiet attentiveness with which they were carried out. Whether it was the brush of a cloth, the chew of a twig, or the rinse of an herbal infusion, the care of the mouth was, at its heart, a simple act of preservation, a preservation of health, of tradition, and of the quiet, unbroken rhythm of daily life. As the 20th century progressed and new technologies and discoveries transformed society, the steady, methodical practices of medieval and early modern oral hygiene began to be fully integrated into the rapidly evolving field of dental care. The profound changes in industry, medicine, and public health ushered in a new understanding of oral hygiene, one that was rooted in scientific principles and driven by innovation and mass production. Yet even as these transformations occurred, the fundamental act of caring for the teeth, the simple, repetitive rituals of brushing, rinsing, and chewing continued to be a fixture of daily life, albeit now with more advanced tools and a growing understanding of the biological processes involved. By the early 20th century, the toothbrush as we know it today had evolved significantly. The widespread availability of mass-produced brushes, made from materials such as plastic, nylon, and later synthetic fibers, marked a significant departure from the bone and hog bristle brushes of the past. With the growing influence of consumer culture and advertising, the modern toothbrush began to be promoted as not just a tool for cleanliness, but as an essential instrument for maintaining one's health and social standing. Dental hygiene, once a largely private and somewhat neglected practice, became a subject of national public health campaigns. The idea that clean teeth were not just a matter of aesthetics, but a key element of overall health began to take root in the collective consciousness. In the first half of the century, fluoridation of drinking water became a key public health measure in many countries, heralding the development of a scientific understanding of tooth decay and its prevention. The introduction of fluoride toothpaste, which offered both an effective cleaning agent and a means of preventing cavities, further reinforced the connection between oral care and general well-being. For many, dental hygiene became a daily ritual, formalized through a mixture of education, media influence, and the growing availability of affordable dental products. Despite the widespread adoption of these modern tools and techniques, certain aspects of oral hygiene continued to maintain their quiet relevance in everyday life. The act of brushing teeth, though now commonly associated with the use of commercial toothpaste and synthetic brushes, still retained the basic pattern of earlier practices. The rhythm of brushing, the use of water to rinse and cleanse the mouth, and the feeling of comfort and care, these elements remained consistent, a part of the enduring legacy of those quiet routines. In many parts of the world, particularly in rural areas, the older methods continued to coexist with newer developments. The chew stick, for example, remained a prominent tool in parts of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, where its use was sustained by both tradition and practicality. The miswak, a small twig from the Salvadora persica tree, is still used widely in many Islamic cultures and is recognized for its natural cleansing and antibacterial properties. It remains a symbol of continuity, a bridge between the ancient methods of oral care and the modern world. Even as more sophisticated tools and techniques came into use, the tradition of using herbs, salts, and natural products to care for the teeth lingered in certain communities. In some rural areas, particularly in regions where access to mass-produced products was limited, people still relied on locally sourced ingredients for oral hygiene. Salt, charcoal, and herbs such as neem and clove continued to be used as tooth powders or mouth rinses. These natural methods were passed down through generations, maintained by oral tradition, and deeply integrated into the daily routines of people who lived closer to the land and its rhythms. The growing awareness of the importance of oral hygiene did not, however, eliminate the quiet, personal rituals that had always marked the care of the mouth. For many, the daily routine of brushing, flossing, and rinsing became a deeply ingrained habit, as necessary and automatic as eating or dressing. Even in the most modern and urbanized environments, where dentistry had become highly specialized and commercialized, the fundamental habits of caring for the teeth, the gentle brush of a toothbrush, the soothing rinse of mouthwash, remained a universal part of daily life. It was in this shift toward a more scientific understanding of oral care that the foundation for modern dentistry was laid. With the development of more sophisticated diagnostic tools, the discovery of the link between oral health and overall health, and the rise of professional dental care, the field of dentistry became more defined and specialized. The role of the dentist, once a rudimentary craft practiced by barbers and apothecaries, was now an established profession, with schools and certifications dedicated to the study of oral health. Yet, even as the profession became more formalized, the practices of the past continued to echo through the field. The careful brushing of teeth, the removal of food particles with floss, and the regular rinsing of the mouth all harken back to simpler times, when the act of cleaning the teeth was not a medical procedure but a personal ritual. Today, the rituals of oral hygiene may be guided by dentists, aided by advanced materials and technology, but they still retain the essence of those quiet, private practices that began in medieval kitchens and continued through centuries of change. In many ways, the long history of oral hygiene mirrors the broader history of personal care and well-being. It is a history not of sudden breakthroughs, but of gradual, steady progress, of routines that evolve and adapt, but never lose their fundamental purpose. From the simple cloths and twigs of medieval homes to the mass-produced toothbrushes of the modern world, the goal has always been the same: to care for the mouth, to maintain health, and to do so in a way that becomes an integral part of daily life. The persistence of these practices, despite the centuries of change, is a testament to their quiet importance. Oral hygiene, in its most basic form, is not an invention of modern science, but a part of the long, slow evolution of human care for the body. Whether through the chew of a twig, the brush of a cloth, or the modern swish of mouthwash, the care of the mouth remains, in its essence, a simple, unspoken act, a ritual that connects us to our ancestors, and the rhythms of life that have sustained us for centuries. And so, as we look back on the long history of oral hygiene, we see not only the evolution of tools and techniques, but the persistence of a quiet tradition, a tradition of care, passed from generation to generation, unchanged in its essential purpose. The methods may have become more sophisticated, the tools more refined, but the act itself remains rooted in the simple, unchanging rhythms of life: the care of the mouth, the preservation of health, and the quiet, steady passage of time. As we move further into the 20th and 21st centuries, the landscape of oral care continues to evolve, marked by rapid advancements in technology, medical understanding, and cultural shifts. Yet, despite these significant changes, the foundational practices of caring for the teeth, the simple acts of brushing, rinsing, and chewing, remain largely unchanged in their essence. The modern era has ushered in tools and techniques that reflect an increasingly sophisticated understanding of the science of oral health, but these innovations often build upon the long-standing traditions that have quietly endured for centuries. The advent of the electric toothbrush, introduced in the mid-20th century, represents one of the more notable innovations in oral care. With its mechanical oscillations, it promised a more thorough clean than manual brushing could provide. The marketing of this new technology, though geared towards convenience and efficiency, was rooted in the same fundamental goals that had guided centuries of oral care: to remove food particles, plaque, and bacteria from the teeth and gums. Yet, the electric toothbrush, despite its sophistication, did not replace the fundamental act of brushing. It simply made the process easier, and for some, more effective. The act of brushing, still done twice a day, still requiring a steady hand, remained a deeply ingrained part of daily life. The role of fluoride in modern oral health is another example of the blend of new knowledge and old practice. The discovery that fluoride could help prevent tooth decay led to its widespread inclusion in both toothpaste and public water supplies. While this represents a marked advancement in understanding how to protect and preserve teeth, the basic act of brushing with toothpaste remained unchanged. Fluoride, once introduced, became a staple in the ongoing routine of brushing, an added layer of protection to the centuries-old practice of cleaning the teeth. The practice of rinsing with mouthwash, which dates back to ancient civilizations, also experienced a resurgence, with new formulas and flavors designed to freshen breath and combat bacteria. In more recent decades, dental care has expanded into the realm of cosmetic procedures, with teeth whitening becoming a popular pursuit for those seeking brighter smiles. Whitening treatments, though now available over the counter in various forms, echo the long-standing desire to maintain not only the health, but the appearance of one's teeth. However, these modern treatments, ranging from laser whitening to at-home kits, are still grounded in the same principles of cleanliness that have marked the practice of oral care for centuries. Brightening one's teeth may be a more recent trend, but it still arises from the basic human desire to care for the mouth and ensure it remains healthy and presentable. Despite the modern tools and professional treatments available, the most fundamental aspect of oral hygiene remains, as it has always been, regular, consistent care. The simple act of brushing and flossing continues to form the core of daily oral care, while the emphasis on preventative measures, proper diet, avoiding sugary foods, and regular dental checkups completes the modern approach to maintaining oral health. And while new technologies, such as laser dentistry and digital scans, continue to reshape the professional side of oral care, these advancements are designed to enhance the personal care that individuals have practiced for centuries. Indeed, the modern dental visit, which often includes professional cleanings, examinations, and the occasional restorative procedure, marks a more formal approach to the care of the teeth. Yet, the familiar acts of brushing, rinsing, and chewing that defined the medieval approach to oral hygiene remain as essential as ever. The role of the dentist has evolved to address more complex issues, such as cavities, gum disease, and misaligned teeth, through increasingly sophisticated techniques. Still, the dentist's advice echoes the same principles that were passed down for generations: brush regularly, floss daily, and maintain a healthy diet. Interestingly, even as modern dental practices become more advanced, there is a growing awareness of the value of traditional approaches, particularly in the realm of natural and holistic health. Many people today seek out organic, fluoride-free toothpastes, herbal mouth rinses, and natural teeth whitening products, embracing the simplicity of nature's remedies in their daily routines. The use of herbs such as neem, clove, and mint, once used by medieval and early modern people, has seen a resurgence in both traditional and modern oral care. This return to more natural remedies can be seen as a full circle moment, as contemporary individuals rediscover the wisdom of centuries-old practices while incorporating them into modern health routines. The connection between oral hygiene and overall health has also gained greater recognition in the 21st century. Research has increasingly demonstrated that oral health is closely linked to other aspects of health, including heart disease, diabetes, and even mental health. This understanding has fueled a growing movement to prioritize dental care as an integral part of overall wellness, with individuals taking a more proactive approach to their oral hygiene routines. This shift represents a significant departure from the medieval era, when oral health was considered somewhat secondary to other, more immediate concerns. Today, the understanding of how oral health impacts overall well-being is reshaping the way people think about their mouths, not just as a site of food intake or speech, but as an integral part of the body's larger systems. Yet for all these advances, the practices of brushing, flossing, and rinsing, fundamental simple acts, remain the backbone of oral care. These acts, handed down through generations, continue to be the most effective and widely used tools for maintaining oral health. And while the tools may have evolved from rough twigs and linen claws to modern toothbrushes and electric flossers, the essence of the practice has remained consistent: a daily routine of care driven by the simple goal of maintaining the health of the mouth and the body. The persistence of these practices speaks to the quiet resilience of tradition. It is a reminder that, even as the world changes around us, there are some practices that endure, not because they are the most advanced or the most glamorous, but because they are fundamentally effective and simple. In the case of oral care, these humble everyday rituals, whether passed down from medieval forebears or refined through modern science, serve as a testament to the enduring value of personal care and the quiet, steady commitment to health. As we look toward the future, it is clear that dental hygiene will continue to evolve, shaped by new technologies, innovations in healthcare, and greater awareness of the importance of oral health. Yet, no matter how far we advance, we are still standing on the shoulders of those who have come before us, whose quiet, steady habits laid the groundwork for the practices we follow today. And in this continuity, there is a profound comfort, a recognition that some practices, however simple, are timeless. The legacy of medieval and early modern oral hygiene is a quiet, enduring one. It is a legacy not of dramatic breakthroughs or cutting-edge technology, but of steady daily practices, small acts, performed consistently, that contribute to health and well-being. Whether through the use of herbs, cloths, twigs, or modern tools, the care of the teeth remains a universal act, connecting us to the generations that preceded us and offering a sense of continuity in a world that is always changing. As the modern world moved into the 21st century, the landscape of oral care continued to evolve in ways both profound and subtle. The rise of mass communication, digital technology, and a globalized economy brought with it a proliferation of dental care products, treatments, and services. Yet, even amid these advancements, the simple, quiet acts of brushing, rinsing, and flossing endured. These humble practices, rooted in centuries of tradition, continue to be the bedrock of oral hygiene, the foundation upon which the more sophisticated tools and methods were built. The modern era, with its advancements in medical science and technology, introduced a new understanding of the importance of dental care, not just for the health of the teeth, but for overall well-being. Research into the links between oral health and systemic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and even Alzheimer's disease, revealed the profound impact that the state of one's mouth can have on the rest of the body. This recognition shifted the conversation about oral hygiene from being a minor aspect of personal care to a critical part of maintaining overall health. Fluoridation of drinking water, introduced in the mid-20th century, became one of the most significant public health measures aimed at preventing tooth decay. The addition of fluoride to public water supplies, along with the widespread use of fluoride toothpaste, helped reduce the incidence of cavities, particularly in children. This intervention, based on scientific research into the role of fluoride in strengthening tooth enamel, marked a new era in the fight against tooth decay. Fluoride toothpaste, once considered a luxury for the wealthy, became a staple in households across the globe, further standardizing the practice of oral care and reinforcing the importance of regular brushing. Alongside fluoride, the development of modern toothbrushes with synthetic bristles revolutionized oral hygiene. The introduction of the nylon bristle toothbrush in the 1930s, followed by the rise of electric toothbrushes in the 1960s, brought convenience and efficacy to daily oral care. Electric toothbrushes, with their oscillating and rotating heads, promised to provide a more thorough cleaning than manual brushing, and their popularity soared. The ability to brush with greater efficiency, combined with the proliferation of toothpaste designed for specific needs, whitening, tartar control, sensitive teeth, allowed individuals to personalize their oral hygiene routine to an unprecedented degree. In parallel with these technological innovations, the understanding of oral care expanded. Dentists, once primarily concerned with extracting teeth or filling cavities, began to take a more preventive approach to dental health. The role of regular dental checkups became firmly established, with visits to the dentist now seen as essential to maintaining good oral health. Dentists promoted not just the importance of brushing, but also flossing, mouth rinses, and dietary considerations, emphasizing that oral health was not just about cleaning the teeth, but also about protecting the gums and the entire oral ecosystem. In this modern context, we can still see the threads of the older traditions running through contemporary practices. The electric toothbrush, with its sleek design and technical sophistication, is still fundamentally a tool for brushing the teeth, a method of cleaning that has not changed in its essence for hundreds of years. Likewise, the focus on prevention, whether through fluoride treatments, sealants, or routine checkups, echoes the preventive nature of medieval oral care, when herbal rinses and daily routines aim to stave off the inevitable decay that could occur without attention. While modern dentistry has given rise to more specialized treatments such as orthodontics, periodontics, and cosmetic dentistry, the basic act of brushing remains one of the most consistent and widespread practices in the history of human health. The materials and tools may have evolved, from the frayed twigs of the Middle Ages to the electric toothbrushes of today. But the purpose has remained the same: to keep the teeth clean, to prevent disease, and to maintain the mouth in a state of good health. The societal focus on aesthetics also began to shape oral care in the 20th and 21st centuries, as the concept of the perfect smile became a symbol of beauty, success, and social standing. Cosmetic dentistry emerged as a distinct field. Teeth whitening, veneers, and orthodontics became common procedures for those seeking to enhance their appearance. This new focus on the cosmetic aspect of oral health, while driven by cultural and societal pressures, still relies on the foundational practices of brushing, flossing, and regular professional care. In many ways, modern cosmetic dentistry simply builds upon the same understanding of oral hygiene that has been passed down through the ages, with a renewed emphasis on the appearance of the smile. Yet, despite these modern advances, many individuals continue to embrace natural and traditional remedies for oral care. The resurgence of interest in organic and natural products has led to the growth of herbal toothpastes, charcoal-based powders, and even oil pulling, an ancient practice that has been reintroduced to the mainstream. These products, while often marketed as alternatives to conventional dental care, reflect a desire to return to simpler, more natural methods. In some ways, this movement toward natural oral hygiene mirrors the quiet, non-invasive methods used in the past, when herbs and simple tools were the primary means of maintaining a clean mouth. Even today, in a world filled with high-tech gadgets and advanced treatments, many people still look to the traditions of the past. In rural communities around the world, the practice of using chew sticks, herbal rinses, and natural powders continues to be passed down from generation to generation. The miswak, for example, remains a popular method of cleaning the teeth in parts of the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, where its use is deeply rooted in cultural and religious practices. In many ways, these traditional methods of oral care continue to offer a sense of continuity, a reminder of the ways in which people have always cared for their teeth, regardless of the tools and technologies at their disposal. In the modern world, where information is readily available and dental care is often highly commercialized, it is easy to forget the simplicity and quiet diligence of the practices that have sustained oral health for centuries. The cloths, twigs, salts, and herbs of medieval times are no longer in common use, but their spirit remains present in the daily rituals of brushing, rinsing, and flossing. These small personal acts of care, still so common today, continue to be a testament to the timeless human desire to preserve health and well-being, using the tools at hand. As we look ahead to the future of dental care, it is likely that new innovations will continue to emerge, further enhancing our ability to maintain healthy mouths. The future may bring even more advanced technologies, such as smart toothbrushes that provide real-time feedback on brushing technique, or new treatments that prevent decay before it starts. However, no matter how far we advance, we will always be bound by the simple truths that have guided us for centuries, that daily care, consistency, and attention to the needs of the mouth are the key to maintaining oral health. And in this, the quiet legacy of medieval oral hygiene endures, reminding us that even in a world of rapid change, the most effective solutions are often the simplest and the most enduring. As we move deeper into the 21st century, the world of oral care has witnessed the rise of digital tools and advancements that allow us to track, monitor, and even receive immediate feedback on our oral hygiene practices. Smart toothbrushes that connect to apps on our smartphones, providing real-time data on brushing habits, and ultrasonic devices designed to remove plaque more efficiently are now available, creating an entirely new dimension to how we care for our teeth. These innovations represent a logical progression from the early practices of brushing and chewing that were rooted in tradition, but now enhanced with the precision and data-driven capabilities of modern technology. Yet, even as we embrace these new technologies, it is important to remember that at the core of modern dental care lies the same fundamental practice that has endured for centuries: regular brushing and rinsing. While the tools may have become more sophisticated, the essence of what we do remains unchanged. The daily rhythm of brushing, flossing, and maintaining oral health continues to be rooted in the basic act of cleaning and caring for our teeth. A ritual that, though now informed by scientific advancements, still mirrors the humble traditions of the past. The rise of the digital age has also facilitated greater access to information about oral health. Dental professionals and health experts now have the ability to reach a much wider audience through online platforms, providing educational content about the importance of oral hygiene, the effects of diet on dental health, and the best practices for maintaining a healthy mouth. Public health campaigns focused on the prevention of cavities and gum disease, along with a growing emphasis on the link between oral health and overall well-being, have created a more informed public, one that understands that taking care of the mouth is not only about appearance, but also about longevity, comfort, and the prevention of more serious health issues. This surge in knowledge has coincided with the increased accessibility of dental care. In many parts of the world, particularly in developed countries, routine dental checkups have become the norm, and insurance plans now often cover preventive care. These checkups, once the domain of the wealthy, or those fortunate enough to have access to care, are now regularly scheduled appointments for families, individuals, and children. The concept of regular dental visits has become as much a part of the routine as going to the doctor for a physical exam or the optometrist for an eye checkup. However, even with these advances in professional care, the home care practices of brushing, flossing, and rinsing remain at the forefront of maintaining oral health. The focus on prevention, which began to take root in the 20th century, continues to shape modern dental practices. We now understand that keeping teeth healthy is a lifelong commitment. Preventing decay, managing plaque, and addressing gum health are all vital aspects of oral hygiene. And the modern approach, which places significant emphasis on prevention, mirrors the quiet prevention-focused routines of past generations. The medieval practice of rinsing the mouth with wine or vinegar was an early, albeit rudimentary, form of the preventive mindset that now drives much of modern dentistry. Today, fluoride treatments, dental sealants, and specialized mouthwashes perform a similar function, aimed at protecting and preserving teeth from the effects of daily life. Even as technology advances, the role of the dentist has expanded significantly. While medieval dental practitioners were often limited to extractions, today's dentists are highly trained professionals who not only perform restorative procedures like fillings and crowns, but also take on roles in cosmetic dentistry, orthodontics, and preventive care. The field has grown into a highly specialized area of healthcare with distinct areas of expertise that were unimaginable in the past. Yet, even in the face of these advancements, the dental chair remains, in many ways, a continuation of the medieval experience. The examination of the mouth, the gentle cleaning of teeth, the care of the gums, all processes that connect us to a long line of people who perform these same actions, albeit with much less technology. In many parts of the world, traditional methods of oral care continue to thrive, particularly in rural or less urbanized regions. While modern dentistry and commercial dental products are readily available in cities, the practice of using twigs, herbs, and natural remedies to care for the teeth is still widespread in certain communities. In parts of India, for example, the miswak chew stick continues to be a popular method for cleaning teeth, with its use ingrained in daily life and cultural traditions. Similarly, in parts of Africa and the Middle East, the practice of chewing on natural twigs or using powdered plant-based pastes remains a key part of oral hygiene. These natural remedies often coexist with modern dental products, with individuals choosing to integrate both traditional and modern methods into their daily routines. The use of natural materials, such as neem, clove, and aloe vera, reflects a broader global movement towards sustainability and organic health practices. In many ways, this return to nature echoes the practices of the past, when herbs and plants were relied upon not just for their medicinal properties, but also for their accessibility, affordability, and effectiveness. The resurgence of natural products for oral care represents a full circle. where modern consumers are once again seeking simplicity, rooted in traditions that have endured for centuries. In the modern age, we also see a greater focus on the social and cultural aspects of oral hygiene. As the emphasis on health and appearance grows, there is an increasing awareness of the role that teeth play in our social interactions, professional lives, and self-esteem. The rise of cosmetic dentistry, such as teeth whitening, veneers, and implants, has made oral care not just a matter of health, but also a means of personal expression and aesthetic preference. This focus on appearance reflects broader societal values, in which the perfect smile has become a symbol of confidence, success, and well-being. Yet despite these modern trends, the act of cleaning and caring for the teeth remains fundamentally the same. Whether with a toothbrush, a miswak, or a mouthful of fresh herbs, the primary aim is still the same: to remove debris, prevent decay, and maintain the overall health of the mouth. The tools may have evolved, but the underlying principles have remained rooted in practices that span centuries of human experience. The quiet act of brushing or rinsing, once carried out with simple tools in medieval kitchens, now takes place in high-tech bathrooms with smart devices, but its purpose remains constant: to care for the mouth, to protect the teeth, and to preserve overall health. The quiet, enduring legacy of medieval oral care has left an indelible mark on modern practices. The act of cleaning one's teeth, which began with the most basic tools and rudimentary knowledge, has evolved into a highly specialized field supported by advanced technology, science, and a deep understanding of health. But at its core, oral hygiene remains a simple personal practice, a rhythm in daily life, performed regularly with intention, care, and patience. And in this, we find the timelessness of the human experience, the consistent effort to care for the body, the mouth, and the self across time and generations. As the modern age presses forward, the enduring practices of personal care, particularly in oral hygiene, continue to serve as a testament to the quiet persistence of tradition. Even in the age of instant communication, widespread globalization, and technological innovation, the core principles of dental hygiene remain grounded in centuries of practice. As we look at the modern tools and methods available to us, advanced electric toothbrushes, specialized mouthwashes, and professional dental procedures, we cannot ignore the quiet origins of these practices, which have been passed down through generations, subtly transforming and adapting to meet the needs of each era. In today's world, many people are fortunate enough to have access to cutting-edge dental care, from advanced orthodontics to laser treatments for cavities. Yet, despite the sophisticated tools at our disposal, the foundation of these practices still lies in the simplicity of daily care. Brushing and flossing, perhaps now with higher-tech instruments, remain the most basic and effective forms of maintaining oral health. Even in a world where digital toothbrushes can track the time spent brushing and guide users toward more effective techniques, the fundamental act of cleaning one's teeth by hand with a brush and paste remains unchanged. The proliferation of new oral care technologies, from app-connected devices to AI-driven recommendations, reflects the ongoing desire to refine and improve our understanding of oral health. These innovations promise to revolutionize the way we care for our teeth, offering personalized insights and data-driven suggestions that were once unimaginable. And yet, despite all the technological advances, the quiet act of brushing one's teeth still carries the essence of those ancient practices: the careful motion of the hand, the gentle attention to the gums, the soothing rhythm of routine. In parallel, the social importance of oral health has grown. It is not just about keeping one's teeth free from decay or disease. It is also about maintaining a clean, attractive smile, one that reflects health, confidence, and vitality. The cosmetic dental industry, now a booming sector, offers treatments like teeth whitening, veneers, and even digital smile makeovers. These procedures cater to a modern desire to improve not only function but appearance, transforming the once quiet practice of dental care into a more outwardly visible symbol of personal well-being and self-expression. Yet, even in this modern pursuit of cosmetic perfection, the fundamental act of brushing remains unchanged, a daily practice shared across cultures and societies, a universal ritual of health and care. Despite the focus on aesthetics, there remains a growing awareness of the deeper connection between oral health and overall wellness. Research has increasingly shown that maintaining good oral hygiene can have far-reaching effects on overall health. Poor oral health has been linked to heart disease, diabetes, and even cognitive decline. As more people become aware of these connections, there is a growing understanding that taking care of one's teeth is not just about appearance, but about preventing serious health issues later in life. This shift in perspective mirrors the long-standing recognition, even in medieval times, that a clean mouth was linked to a clean body, a vital part of maintaining both physical and spiritual well-being. For some, this recognition has led to a resurgence of interest in more natural approaches to oral care. While many people still rely on commercial products, there's an increasing movement towards holistic and organic solutions. The use of herbal remedies, such as neem, miswak, and other plant-based products, has gained popularity once again, with many consumers seeking alternatives to the chemicals found in mass-produced toothpastes and mouthwashes. This return to nature, seeking simplicity and efficacy in the plants that our ancestors used, is not so much a rejection of modern advances, but a recognition of the enduring power of traditional remedies. This movement toward natural oral care also highlights a broader trend in health and wellness, where individuals seek more control over their personal health and prefer products that align with their values, whether that be sustainability, organic ingredients, or a desire to return to simpler, more natural ways of living. In many ways, this reflects the same quiet wisdom that guided our ancestors in their daily routines, when herbs, salts, and simple tools were enough to care for the body's most basic needs. Even as we embrace these modern and natural solutions, the fundamental need for routine remains. Whether it's through the latest technological tools, natural remedies, or the tried-and-true methods passed down through the generations, the need for consistency, for the small daily acts of care, remains central to maintaining good oral health. It is in the quiet routine, brushing, rinsing, chewing, that we find the essence of dental care, a practice that is deeply personal and consistently vital, no matter the era. The continued relevance of these simple practices speaks to the unchanging nature of certain human habits, habits that are deeply ingrained in our daily lives and often go unnoticed. They are the small, repetitive actions that sustain our health, our well-being, and our connection to the world around us. Just as our medieval ancestors used the twigs and herbs available to them, so too do we turn to the tools at our disposal, whether advanced or natural, to care for our teeth. And just as they understood the importance of maintaining the mouth as part of a broader sense of health, so do we today, in a world of instant access to information and cutting-edge products, continue to brush, rinse, and floss, maintaining a connection to the quiet practices of the past. In this way, the practice of oral hygiene becomes a bridge between generations, a timeless ritual that transcends the tools and methods used, embodying the shared human understanding of the need for care, preservation, and health. Whether through a simple cloth, a chewing stick, or the latest electric toothbrush, the act remains fundamentally the same, a quiet, personal commitment to maintaining the mouth as a part of the whole body. Thus, as we continue forward into the future, we can be assured that the practices of dental hygiene will continue to evolve, adapting to the needs of a changing world. Yet, at its heart, the essence of oral care will remain unchanged. The simple, steady rhythm of brushing and cleaning the teeth, whether with a cloth, a twig, or a high-tech brush, will remain a part of our daily lives, connecting us to our past and to the unbroken continuity of those who have cared for their teeth before us. As we move further into the future, the evolution of oral care will undoubtedly continue, driven by new technologies, materials, and scientific discoveries. However, as we observe this ongoing progression, it becomes evident that at its core, oral hygiene remains an enduring part of the human experience, an unbroken thread linking generations and cultures from the ancient civilizations to our modern world. In the future, the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning into dental care holds great promise. We may soon see personalized oral hygiene routines that adapt in real time to an individual's unique oral health needs. Smart toothbrushes, equipped with sensors and powered by AI, could analyze the pressure, technique, and coverage of brushing, offering immediate feedback and adjustments. These advanced devices could ensure a level of precision and thoroughness never before possible, allowing individuals to maintain optimal oral health with minimal effort. Yet, even with these innovations, the underlying principles of brushing, gentle, consistent care, will remain unchanged. At the same time, the growth of telemedicine and remote healthcare may lead to more virtual consultations with dental professionals. Individuals could receive advice, diagnoses, and guidance without ever having to visit a dental office. While this may change how dental care is delivered, the act of maintaining one's teeth will continue to be a deeply personal, private responsibility, something that, at its essence, requires individual effort, mindfulness, and commitment. Moreover, with the growing interest in sustainability and environmental consciousness, future oral care products may be designed with an even stronger focus on natural, biodegradable, and eco-friendly materials. As people become more attuned to the impact of consumer goods on the environment, there is likely to be a shift toward organic toothpastes, biodegradable toothbrushes, and sustainable packaging. This return to more eco-conscious methods mirrors the natural, earth-bound remedies of the past, when herbs and plants were used not only because they were accessible, but because they were aligned with a broader respect for the environment and a commitment to using what nature provided. Even as the tools and technologies of dental care evolve, the fundamental act of caring for the mouth will remain tethered to the quiet rhythms of everyday life. The act of brushing, whether done with a high-tech toothbrush or a simple twig, will continue to be a personal ritual, a daily commitment to health, just as it was for generations before us. We may change the way we measure, monitor, and enhance our oral health, but the act itself will retain its quiet importance. The simple, consistent rhythm of brushing, flossing, and rinsing will remain foundational to the maintenance of good health, a routine as constant as the cycles of the seasons. Interestingly, the human desire for simplicity and routine, combined with an increasing preference for natural and sustainable products, may bring about a renewed focus on traditional methods. In a world dominated by fast-paced innovation, there may be a growing movement to reclaim ancient, time-tested practices that prioritize personal care and well-being over convenience or commercialism. The practice of using herbal tooth powders, natural oils, or even a return to miswak twigs may see a revival, particularly in a world that is increasingly aware of the potential side effects of synthetic products. People may turn to what their ancestors used, not only for their accessibility and efficacy, but for their connection to nature and simplicity. In addition, with the rise of personalized healthcare and individualized wellness plans, oral hygiene could become more tailored to specific needs. Genetic testing and biome analysis might play a role in creating custom oral care regimens that address an individual's unique oral health profile. People may soon receive recommendations based on their saliva composition, diet, and genetic predisposition to conditions such as gum disease or tooth decay. This level of personalization, driven by advanced science, would represent a major shift in how we approach dental care. However, even in this highly specialized future, the basic principles of caring for one's mouth, regular brushing, attention to diet, and consistent habits will remain at the core of maintaining good health. The role of the dentist, too, will evolve. While dental care has been steadily professionalized since medieval times, future advancements in dental technology may lead to even more specialized roles for dental professionals. The development of more sophisticated diagnostic tools, Perhaps even those that use artificial intelligence or advanced imaging could allow for earlier detection of oral health issues, enabling preventative care to begin even before symptoms arise. Yet even as the dental profession grows in complexity, its foundational goal will remain the same: to ensure that people continue to practice good oral hygiene and to provide the necessary tools and guidance to maintain a healthy mouth for life. Despite these technological advancements, the overarching theme of oral care, the desire for health, comfort, and well-being, will continue to reflect the timeless human need to care for our bodies, and to do so with the tools and knowledge available to us. The simplicity of brushing, rinsing, and flossing will continue to serve as a reminder that despite the complexity of the world around us, sometimes the most effective solutions are the simplest. In the end, the legacy of medieval oral hygiene, with its roots in simplicity and natural care, will continue to be felt in the modern era. The act of brushing one's teeth may now be aided by the most advanced technology, but the heart of the practice remains unchanged: a quiet, deliberate effort to care for oneself, to ensure health, and to maintain the well-being of the mouth for a lifetime. Just as it did centuries ago, the act of caring for the mouth serves as a personal, intimate ritual, one that links us to our past, connects us to the present, and will continue to shape our future. Through the evolution of tools, techniques, and knowledge, the quiet legacy of oral hygiene persists, an enduring reminder of the ways in which simple practices, grounded in tradition, continue to guide our health and well-being, century after century. As we look toward the future of dental care, it becomes clear that the practices established centuries ago will continue to be foundational, even as they are enhanced by modern innovation. The relationship between the oral cavity and overall health has garnered increasing attention in recent years, leading to more comprehensive and integrated approaches to dental and general health care. As the world becomes more connected and the field of dentistry advances, the importance of maintaining a healthy mouth will only grow, further reinforcing the need for consistent, daily care. The future may bring an even deeper understanding of the connections between the mouth and the body. Research in the fields of microbiome science and systemic health suggests that the bacteria and microorganisms that live in the mouth play a significant role in the development of systemic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and respiratory infections. As we come to understand these complex relationships better, dental care may become even more closely linked to overall health management. In this future, maintaining a healthy mouth may not only be about preventing cavities or gum disease, but also about preserving and promoting general wellness. As healthcare becomes more personalized and integrated, it is likely that oral hygiene will be part of a more holistic approach to health. The ability to monitor the health of the mouth in real time, using wearable devices, sensors, or even genetic markers, may allow individuals to customize their oral hygiene routines more effectively. The technology might even provide immediate feedback on the effectiveness of brushing techniques or alert individuals to emerging problems, such as the early stages of gum disease or the buildup of plaque. This feedback loop, based on a deep understanding of each person's unique needs, would represent a new frontier in personal care, building on the legacy of oral hygiene practices that have been passed down through generations. While modern tools such as electric toothbrushes, advanced flossing systems, and high-tech mouthwashes continue to make oral care more effective and accessible, the basic principles of brushing, rinsing, and flossing are unlikely to change. The brush will always be an essential tool, and the simple act of moving it across the teeth will remain one of the most effective ways to maintain oral health. The introduction of new specialized devices will undoubtedly help refine the process, but they will not replace the quiet, routine actions that form the foundation of daily care. Moreover, the influence of ancient natural methods will likely persist in the future as well. As we see a resurgence of interest in holistic health practices, herbal toothpastes, miswak sticks, and other plant-based oral care solutions will likely continue to coexist with modern dental products. There is a growing desire among consumers to return to nature and to simplify the products they use. The use of natural ingredients in oral care products may become more mainstream, with an emphasis on organic, biodegradable, and eco-friendly options. These natural products, rooted in the traditions of ancient cultures, will carry with them the legacy of centuries of human experience, ensuring that the simple act of caring for one's teeth remains tied to nature and the cycles of life. In this modern world, as we are faced with an increasing number of choices and advanced solutions, the fundamental practices of oral care will remain a constant. People will continue to brush their teeth twice a day, floss between meals, and rinse with mouthwash as part of their daily routine. What will change, however, is our awareness of the long history that has shaped these practices. As we adopt new tools and approaches, we will be connected to a legacy that spans millennia, one that has been shaped by the hands of countless generations who cared for their mouths with simple tools, herbal remedies, and a deep respect for their health. The future of oral care will undoubtedly bring new innovations that make it easier, more effective, and more personalized than ever before. Yet, the fundamental rhythm of brushing, the quiet practice of caring for the mouth, will remain unchanged, offering a steady thread of continuity in a rapidly changing world. These rituals of care, whether simple or high-tech, will continue to guide us, just as they have guided those who came before us. And in this, we see that the legacy of medieval and early modern oral hygiene is not just a part of the past, but an enduring practice that will carry forward into the future. Oral care, in its simplest and most profound form, has always been about more than just the mouth. It is about caring for the body, maintaining health, and ensuring the well-being of oneself and one's community. The rituals of brushing, rinsing, and flossing are not merely about cleanliness, they are about care. They are about taking time to nurture and protect the body, to respect its needs, and to sustain its health. These practices, passed down through generations, remain a testament to the enduring wisdom of those who came before us, a quiet legacy that will continue to shape the future of dental hygiene. As the world changes and evolves, one thing remains certain: the simple, steady practice of caring for the mouth will endure, just as it has for centuries. From the earliest methods of rinsing with vinegar and brushing with twigs, to the modern techniques of flossing and using advanced electric toothbrushes, the core of dental hygiene remains the same: a daily commitment to health, well-being, and the quiet preservation of the body. The future of oral care may hold many new innovations and breakthroughs, but it will always be rooted in the same essential principles. The act of brushing, rinsing, and caring for the mouth is timeless. It is a practice that connects us to our past, shapes our present, and will continue to guide us into the future, steady, simple, and profound. As we continue to look to the future, it is worth considering how the ongoing advancements in technology and health will influence oral care in the coming decades. The future promises even more sophisticated tools and personalized treatments, offering a level of precision and customization never before possible. The age of digital health may bring about a new era in which every individual's dental care regimen is tailored to their specific genetic makeup, lifestyle, and environmental factors. One potential breakthrough that could reshape oral care is the integration of biotechnology with dental products. Imagine the development of toothpaste or mouthwash that contains beneficial bacteria designed to balance the oral microbiome, helping to prevent not only cavities and gum disease, but also promoting overall oral health by supporting the natural defenses of the mouth. These microbiome-enhancing treatments could offer a more holistic approach to oral hygiene, moving beyond just cleaning the teeth to supporting the delicate ecosystem within the mouth, much like the herbal rinses of the past that were designed to soothe, refresh, and protect. We may also see the use of nanotechnology in dental care. Tiny nanoparticles could be embedded in toothpaste or mouth rinses to target and repair damaged enamel, fighting plaque at a molecular level, or even preventing cavities from forming altogether. Nanotechnology could enable the development of materials that are both more effective and more gentle on teeth and gums, providing a level of care that previous generations could only dream of. Such advancements would represent the cutting edge of dental technology, yet they would still share the same essential goals that have always defined oral care: the protection of the teeth, the prevention of decay, and the maintenance of oral health. Even the dental visit itself may look vastly different in the future. The integration of virtual reality, VR, or augmented reality, AR technology, into the dental chair could allow patients to experience a calm, immersive environment while receiving treatments, making the experience more relaxing and less stressful. Future dental tools may also be equipped with real-time data analytics, allowing dentists to detect early signs of oral health problems long before they become visible to the naked eye. This could lead to an even greater emphasis on prevention, reducing the need for restorative work and ensuring that dental care remains as proactive as possible. However, as all of these futuristic advancements are realized, there will still remain the fundamental, timeless act of caring for one's mouth. The tools may become smarter, the treatments more specialized, and the information more personalized, but the heart of oral hygiene, cleaning the teeth, maintaining the gums, and freshening the breath, will still be grounded in the age-old rhythms of brushing, rinsing, and flossing. The simple, repetitive action of brushing the teeth is an enduring tradition that transcends the centuries. It connects us to generations of individuals who, though they lived in a world vastly different from our own, faced the same basic need to care for their bodies, to protect their health, and to maintain their well-being. The evolution of dental care may bring forth incredible new technologies, but the underlying purpose will remain unchanged: to care for the mouth and to ensure that it remains healthy for as long as possible. As we continue to develop new dental products, treatments, and techniques, we must not forget the enduring wisdom of the past. The use of natural herbs, the careful attention to routine, and the steady, consistent care of the teeth are practices that have stood the test of time. They are part of a larger cultural and personal commitment to health that spans across centuries and cultures. And though the tools and methods may evolve, this commitment will continue to be passed down through generations, ensuring that oral care remains not just a matter of convenience or fashion, but a vital part of the human experience. In the years to come, as technology enables us to achieve greater precision in maintaining oral health, we may also find ourselves turning back to the simplicity and natural wisdom of our ancestors. Just as the use of traditional methods like miswak sticks and herbal rinses persists in some communities today, it is likely that we will continue to seek a balance between the advanced tools of the future and the time-tested methods that have sustained us for so long. In this way, the evolution of oral care will be a journey of integration, a blending of the past and the future, of modern technology and ancient traditions. As we develop new ways to care for our teeth and gums, we will do so with a deep respect for the practices that have come before us. We will continue to brush, rinse, and floss, just as our ancestors did, though with more advanced tools and knowledge at our disposal, carrying forward the quiet rhythm of oral hygiene as a fundamental part of our lives. The act of caring for the mouth will continue to be a reflection of care for the body and the body's connection to the natural world. It will be a constant in a rapidly changing world, quiet, simple, and profoundly human. Looking forward into the future, it is clear that dental care, like many aspects of personal health, will continue to be shaped by both technological advancements and the ongoing desire to maintain simplicity and connection to the routines that have long defined human life. As new innovations continue to emerge, it is crucial to remember the roots of oral hygiene, the basic, unchanging practices that have stood the test of time. These practices, while refined and enhanced through the ages, will continue to offer guidance in the future, ensuring that oral care remains a personal, vital, and accessible aspect of our daily routines. One potential shift in the future could be a greater emphasis on the integration of oral health with broader health systems. The emerging field of preventative medicine suggests that taking care of one's teeth and gums can play a critical role in preventing chronic diseases and maintaining overall wellness. Dental care might become even more integrated into general health management, with regular oral health assessments being as common as routine physical exams. This holistic approach to wellness could see a shift in how we view oral health, not as a separate, isolated issue, but as a key part of our broader health journey. Perhaps in the near future, routine visits to the dentist will involve more than just cleaning and treating teeth. With advancements in genetic testing and personalized medicine, dental professionals might use a more data-driven approach, tailoring their recommendations and treatments based on an individual's unique genetic predisposition to oral health issues. This personalized approach, informed by genetic, lifestyle, and environmental factors, could offer a level of precision in care that was once unimaginable, allowing individuals to maintain their teeth in the most effective and sustainable way possible. Moreover, with the rising focus on environmental sustainability, we may see the development of new, eco-friendly oral care products that are more biodegradable, plastic-free, and produced with minimal environmental impact. In a world that is increasingly concerned with sustainability and reducing waste, the dental care industry could evolve to offer products that reflect a more conscious, environmentally aware approach. Imagine toothpaste in compostable packaging, toothbrushes made from renewable materials such as bamboo or biodegradable plastics, and natural locally sourced ingredients used in the production of mouth rinses and tooth powders. These innovations would not only benefit the individual, but also support broader global efforts to protect the planet. In the realm of dental technology, the future holds exciting possibilities. For example, dental treatments may become less invasive and more effective. Advancements in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering could lead to breakthroughs in repairing damaged teeth or regenerating lost enamel. 3D printing technology, which is already being used in some areas of dentistry, could become even more prevalent, allowing for the custom creation of dental restorations such as crowns, bridges, and implants made to fit an individual's mouth with precision and speed. Such innovations would significantly reduce the time and discomfort associated with traditional dental procedures, making the process more efficient, effective, and accessible. At the same time, advancements in pain management and anesthetics will continue to improve the experience of dental procedures, making them less stressful and more comfortable. Techniques such as laser dentistry, which uses focused light to treat soft and hard tissues, could become more widespread, allowing for minimally invasive treatments with faster recovery times and reduced discomfort. The integration of virtual reality or augmented reality into dental care could also revolutionize the way patients experience treatments, offering a calming, immersive experience during procedures. Even as these cutting-edge technologies continue to develop, the fundamental essence of oral care will remain unchanged. The act of brushing, the habit of flossing, and the importance of regular maintenance will continue to be the most effective ways to preserve oral health. While new technologies will provide greater ease and precision, they will only serve to enhance the practices that have been fundamental to dental care for centuries. The core principles, removing plaque, preventing decay, and maintaining gum health, will remain central to oral hygiene routines, no matter the tools or techniques used. Furthermore, the increasing awareness of oral health as a reflection of overall health may lead to broader societal shifts. Just as we have seen with the rise of physical fitness and mental wellness, oral health may become an even more central part of self-care. People may begin to approach dental care not just as a routine, but as an essential part of their daily wellness regimen, with a focus on long-term prevention rather than short-term fixes. The future may see even more widespread education on the importance of oral hygiene, with schools, workplaces, and public health campaigns emphasizing the link between a healthy mouth and a healthy body. Ultimately, the future of oral care will be one that integrates the past, present, and future. It will be a continuation of centuries-old practices enhanced by the innovations of modern science and technology. The basic actions of brushing, rinsing, and flossing, still as effective as ever, will remain the foundation of oral health, while new tools and knowledge will provide a level of precision and customization that was once unimaginable. The quiet everyday act of caring for the mouth will continue to be a personal ritual, shaping our lives in ways both small and significant. As we continue into the future, we are reminded that dental care is not just about teeth. It is about the care of the body, the preservation of health, and the ongoing commitment to self-care and well-being. Whether using a toothbrush made of bamboo, an electric toothbrush with AI capabilities, or a traditional miswak stick, the essence of oral care remains the same, a quiet, vital part of our daily routines, connecting us to the generations before us and to the ones that will follow. In this way, the practice of oral hygiene, though transformed by technology and science, will continue to reflect the deep human need for care, preservation, and health. It is a practice that transcends time and culture, one that connects us across generations and reminds us of the simple, enduring truths that shape our lives. And so, the legacy of oral hygiene will continue, quietly, steadily, and with deep significance, into the future. As we look even further into the future, the trajectory of oral care will no doubt continue to evolve in ways that blend innovation with the core values of health, simplicity, and personal care. The increasing focus on personalized health, fueled by advancements in genetic medicine, artificial intelligence, and more refined diagnostic tools, will likely continue to shape how we approach oral hygiene, making it an even more integral part of our overall health management. One area that holds great promise is the potential for genetic research to redefine oral health strategies. In the coming decades, it may become commonplace for individuals to undergo genetic testing to identify their unique predispositions to oral diseases, such as gum disease, cavities, or sensitivity to dental procedures. This genetic data could inform highly personalized care plans, allowing for more proactive management of oral health based on one's genetic makeup. A person might receive a customized dental regimen that accounts for their specific genetic risks, recommending personalized oral care products, dietary changes, and even tailored brushing techniques to address their unique needs. Moreover, the future of dental care will likely involve the integration of oral health into the broader landscape of personalized medicine. As our understanding of how the mouth is interconnected with the rest of the body grows, it may be possible for dental professionals to collaborate more closely with general healthcare providers, offering a more holistic approach to health. Regular oral health assessments could become part of an individual's overall health checkups, with dental care seamlessly integrated into the monitoring and maintenance of other aspects of well-being. For instance, more research may emerge that ties oral health with immune function or hormonal changes, and as this research becomes more widespread, we may begin to see oral health treatments that go beyond simply cleaning teeth and gums, addressing systemic health as well. This trend toward personalization and holistic care will likely lead to the continued democratization of dental knowledge, as patients become increasingly empowered to take control of their oral health. In the future, the average person may have access to real-time health tracking and digital platforms that offer guidance and recommendations on how to improve their oral hygiene. These systems could use data gathered from wearable devices or connected toothbrushes to provide insights on brushing technique, the effectiveness of one's routine, and specific areas of concern that may require professional attention. In essence, technology will enable individuals to become more informed and proactive, bringing oral health into alignment with the broader wellness movement of the 21st century. On a broader societal level, oral care will likely become more deeply embedded into public health initiatives, with continued emphasis on prevention. Early education, accessible resources, and widespread community engagement will help cultivate a culture of prevention that extends beyond the individual and into the community. The increasing awareness of the links between oral health and overall health will likely fuel policies aimed at improving access to dental care for underserved populations. We may see more equitable distribution of dental resources, making it easier for people in remote areas, low-income communities, and developing countries to access the preventive care they need. Whether through mobile dental clinics, government programs, or international partnerships, oral health care will gradually become more accessible, reducing disparities and fostering a greater sense of collective well-being. Meanwhile, the environmental impact of dental care will continue to be a topic of concern and innovation. The rise of eco-consciousness in the 21st century is already leading to changes in how oral care products are manufactured and consumed. We are likely to see a continued shift towards zero-waste products, bamboo toothbrushes, refillable toothpaste dispensers, and biodegradable floss that reflect the broader trend of sustainability. New methods of packaging, such as edible or compostable materials, could be developed to reduce plastic waste, while more natural and renewable ingredients will be used in the production of oral care products. Additionally, the relationship between oral health and environmental health will continue to evolve. As more research links the impact of industrial pollution and diet on oral health, the broader environmental context will shape future approaches to oral care. Innovations in clean, sustainable food production and agricultural practices may contribute to reducing harmful elements that affect both oral and overall health. There is a growing recognition that the health of our bodies, our teeth included, cannot be separated from the health of our environment, and as these two areas converge, we may see a future where environmental consciousness and personal health go hand in hand. Of course, some of the oldest practices will not fade completely. The comfort and reliability of traditional, natural methods of oral care, herbal tooth powders, rinses made from common garden herbs, or even simple chewing sticks, will persist as they have for centuries. The natural world continues to provide a bounty of plants with benefits for oral hygiene. The resurgence of natural plant-based oral care products, from neem sticks to herbal toothpaste, reflects a desire for simplicity, sustainability, and a return to the roots of oral care. People will continue to be drawn to these natural alternatives, whether out of preference for organic products, a desire for less chemical exposure, or the cultural traditions that have passed down through generations. Ultimately, the future of oral care will be shaped by a balance of technological advancement, scientific understanding, and a return to the basics of personal care. The act of brushing, flossing, and rinsing will continue to be central to maintaining oral health, even as we incorporate advanced tools and techniques into our routines. The quiet personal commitment to oral hygiene, passed down through the ages, from medieval cloths and twigs to the sophisticated brushes of the present day, will remain an essential, unchanging part of our daily lives. And as new discoveries and innovations emerge, we will still be guided by the same enduring principles of care, to maintain the health of the mouth, to protect the teeth, and to nurture the body. In the future, we may look back on our current dental care practices with the same appreciation we have for the centuries of tradition that have led to them. From the cloths and twigs of medieval Europe to the electric toothbrushes and smart dental tools of today, the journey of oral hygiene will continue, quietly adapting to new knowledge, new technology, and new ways of understanding our relationship with our bodies. But at its core, the act of caring for our teeth, simple, consistent, and essential, will remain unchanged, as enduring and vital as the human need for health and well-being itself. As we continue to explore the future of oral care, it becomes evident that technological innovation will play an increasingly pivotal role in how we approach oral health. However, it is also clear that the fundamental aspects of oral hygiene, such as brushing, flossing, and rinsing, will remain central to maintaining a healthy mouth. While modern tools and knowledge will continue to shape the field, the quiet, steady rhythm of daily oral care will remain unchanged, acting as a constant in a world that is ever shifting. One exciting prospect for the future of oral care is the integration of biotechnology and regenerative medicine. As we unlock more secrets about the body's ability to repair itself, scientists may find ways to regenerate or restore damaged teeth, gums, and even enamel. Imagine a future where cavities are not filled with synthetic materials, but instead where the damaged tooth enamel can regrow naturally through biotechnological advancements. Regenerative dentistry could transform the way we think about dental health, eliminating the need for fillings, crowns, and other restorative procedures by harnessing the body's own healing processes. These advances, however, will not change the daily rituals of brushing and flossing, which will continue to be foundational to keeping the mouth healthy, regardless of the futuristic technologies at our disposal. The continuing development of personalized healthcare will also likely influence the future of oral care. With advancements in genomics and personalized medicine, future oral care products could be specifically designed to cater to an individual's unique genetic makeup. By analyzing one's genetic predispositions to certain oral health conditions, such as gum disease, tooth sensitivity, or enamel erosion, customized dental treatments could be recommended, making oral hygiene more tailored and effective. This approach would not replace the need for brushing and flossing, but would enhance the individualized care that each person receives, ensuring that everyone receives the most effective tools for maintaining their oral health. Dental care may also evolve in response to an increasingly health-conscious society. As the understanding of the mouth's connection to overall health grows, people may become more proactive in caring for their teeth, gums, and mouth as part of their broader wellness regimen. The mouth, as the gateway to the body, is already recognized as playing a vital role in many health conditions, including heart disease, diabetes, and respiratory illnesses. In the future, oral care may become even more integrated into other aspects of health management, with patients receiving regular oral health checkups alongside their routine health exams, fostering a more comprehensive approach to well-being. The integration of virtual health platforms could also change the way people engage with their oral health. Imagine a future where dental consultations are available remotely, allowing people to seek advice from dental professionals in real time, from the comfort of their homes. These consultations could be based on data collected through smart oral care devices, such as toothbrushes with sensors or mouthwashes with built-in diagnostic features, which could track oral health and alert individuals to emerging issues. This approach would make dental care more accessible, especially for those in remote areas or individuals with limited access to traditional dental offices, continuing the trend of making oral health more convenient and personalized. Despite these advanced tools and approaches, one thing will remain constant: the essential need for basic daily care. The act of brushing one's teeth, though enhanced with smart technology, personalized treatments, and scientific insights, will remain a personal responsibility. Even as society becomes more advanced in its understanding of oral health, it will still be the small, steady actions, brushing twice a day, flossing regularly, using mouthwash, that will be the most effective means of maintaining a healthy mouth. Moreover, the influence of global sustainability efforts will continue to shape the future of oral care. As awareness of environmental issues grows, the demand for eco-friendly dental products will likely increase. The oral care industry may continue to move toward more sustainable practices, such as the use of biodegradable toothbrushes, recyclable packaging, and ingredients sourced responsibly from nature. In this future, not only will we be concerned with the health of our teeth, but also with how the products we use impact the environment. This dual focus on personal and planetary health will serve to further align oral hygiene with broader movements towards sustainability. As we embrace these changes, we must not lose sight of the enduring simplicity of the act itself. The rhythmic motion of brushing, the careful flossing between teeth, the refreshing rinse, all of these practices will continue to form the foundation of oral care. The tools may become smarter, the products more advanced, and the knowledge deeper, but the core principles of oral hygiene will remain the same: consistency, attention, and care. In the centuries to come, the legacy of medieval and early modern oral hygiene practices will continue to echo in our daily routines. The humble methods that once relied on twigs and cloths will give way to digital feedback and personalized products, but their fundamental purpose will remain unchanged. Through all the changes, from the earliest herbal rinses to the latest dental technologies, the quiet dedication to keeping our mouths clean will continue to be a constant, a practice that transcends time, culture, and technology. Perhaps as we look to the future, we can find comfort in knowing that the small, quiet acts of care, whether brushing, rinsing, or flossing, will continue to be a part of our daily lives. These acts, simple as they may seem, are the foundation of good health. A reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions are the simplest ones, passed down through generations, evolving but always remaining grounded in the same basic principles of care. The future of oral care, while full of possibilities and innovations, will remain tethered to the timeless habits that have always defined it. The rhythm of brushing, the care of the mouth, and the quiet commitment to maintaining oral health will endure, as essential as ever in the ongoing journey of human well-being. As we draw to the final part of this exploration into the future of oral care, it becomes clear that the story of dental hygiene, though shaped by new technologies and innovations, will always circle back to the foundational practices that have sustained us for centuries. The act of brushing, flossing, and rinsing, the basic rituals that have been passed down through countless generations, will remain the cornerstone of oral health. These practices, simple and steady, will continue to be a universal, personal responsibility that ties us to the past and guides us into the future. In an age of rapid change and technological advancement, there is a deep sense of reassurance in the persistence of these quiet, everyday routines. No matter how sophisticated our tools become, whether powered by AI, nanotechnology, or advanced materials, the essential act of taking care of one's teeth will remain deeply personal, grounded in the same quiet rhythm that has sustained humans for centuries. It is this continuity that makes oral hygiene not just a routine, but a shared human experience, a practice that unites us across time and space. The future of oral care will undoubtedly bring even more innovations, personalized treatments based on genetic analysis, the integration of oral health into broader health management, and perhaps even breakthroughs in regenerative medicine that allow us to restore teeth and gums to their natural state. These advancements will make dental care more accessible, effective, and tailored to the individual than ever before. Yet, they will always be built upon the same basic actions: brushing, flossing, and rinsing that have been the heart of oral care for generations. Looking to the past, we see that these practices were not simply about cleanliness, they were, and still are, about health, well-being, and the quiet, steady maintenance of the body. Just as the medieval people cared for their mouths with the tools available to them, twigs, cloths, and salt, so too will future generations find their own tools and methods for maintaining oral health. But the core of this care will remain unchanged, as it has for centuries: the daily commitment to keeping the mouth clean, the teeth healthy, and the body well maintained. The importance of oral health as part of overall well-being is now more widely recognized than ever before. We understand that a healthy mouth contributes to a healthy body, and that good oral hygiene is not just about aesthetics, but about preventing disease and ensuring comfort throughout life. Whether through advanced dental technologies or simple natural methods, the act of caring for the teeth and gums will continue to be a vital part of life, essential to health, and ultimately to happiness. As we move forward, it's reassuring to know that no matter how the world changes, the quiet personal acts of oral care, brushing, flossing, and rinsing, will continue to be a central part of our lives. In a world that often seems overwhelming and fast-paced, these simple routines offer a sense of continuity, a grounding in the daily rituals that connect us to the past and guide us through the present. In the end, the legacy of medieval and early modern oral hygiene practices will live on in our daily lives. The methods may evolve, the tools may change, but the commitment to health, care, and well-being will remain unchanged. The act of caring for our mouths, just as it has for centuries, will continue to be a reminder that even in a world full of change, there is comfort in simplicity, continuity, and the quiet rituals that sustain us. And so, the practice of oral hygiene will endure, quietly, steadily, and always essential to the health of the body and the well-being of the soul. From the twigs and cloths of the past to the advanced technologies of the future, the essence of caring for the mouth will always remain the same: a simple, profound act of self-care that connects us to our history and shapes our future. With each brush, each floss, and each rinse, we carry forward the legacy of those who came before us, ensuring that the timeless rhythms of oral care will continue to guide us for generations to come.